Hello everybody, welcome into my latest live broadcast. Today is Thursday, the 30th of May, 2019. And let's see, we'll turn that off. And hopefully everything is in sync. I'll wait for some feedback from the live audience here to make sure that the audio is in sync. Hello to John Vitsas, Nick Poverman, Lavinio Revelacaba, Past Me, Luke Grania, Zarian Art, Adam Burdick, Alhaj Tepej, Michael Collis, OG Gaming, Dusan Packler, Patrick Rusaw, John Paul Bacon, and Dimitri. Welcome in, guys. Some early folks here in the chat room, and we'll give people a few minutes to join us. We're getting a little bit of an early start, as I like to do if I can, just to make sure the signal's going out okay and we don't have to do any other restarts. Felt like a Coke today. Yesterday when I did the video, I only drank about half the bottle, a little more than half. Never finished it, so I'm proud of myself. Kind of upset, wasting money, but I'm proud of myself that I didn't drink it. So anyway, welcome in. I've got a system here that I built, was the end of last week. This one's going to New York. It's a system for a customer who's ordered a prior system. And we're going to use this as a test bench today before I ship it off to the customer. Because today I want to test M2 NVMe USB adapters. They're priced significantly different. And I'm wondering if one is worth more, if it's justifying the higher price, or if you can save some money and basically get the same everything for less money. So we're going to find that out today here in just a moment. And in fact, I think I have to bring my AC down. I think the cool weather is over and 100 degrees Fahrenheit is right around the corner. Pretty sure this weekend it's going to get hot. So give me just a second. And we're waiting for people to show up anyway to get their notifications. So we'll just give those folks a minute here to join us before we get too into this. And I'm going to turn down my air conditioner. There we go. And the PCI, yesterday I was talking about the PCI Express 4.0 and how AMD is going to have that in their next chipset. They're going to support that, and Corsair has the 600 series M2 NVMe drive already ready for PCIe 4.0, and the specs for PCIe version 5 are already out, and they're talking about speeds of up to 128 gigabits per second. So that's crazy fast. So remember, everything keeps leapfrogging. Right now we're at a PCI Express times 4. But if we can use the full 16 lanes, then we can quadruple our throughput, right? You know, currently we're at PCI Express by 4. That's the current NVMe standard. Imagine PCI Express by 16. So take today's speeds, multiply it by 4. And that's when I talk about the leapfrogging effect of solid state technology versus hard disk drives, which are more of a linear growth that's hard drives don't keep doubling in size, not immediately. They slowly grow over time. With solid state electronics, especially with solid state drives, the technology just keeps doubling. Whatever it was before, the next time it's double. When SATA 1 came out, it was 150 megabits a second. SATA 2 was 300 megabits per second, and then SATA 3 was 600 megabits per second. So SATA 1 to SATA 3, even though it's 2 generations different, it's 4 times faster. So it just keeps doubling, 150 to 300 to 600. And then that's where SATA 3 tops out, and that's as much data that can be transferred through that technology, which is why we switch over to NVMe and PCI Express. It opens up more lanes of traffic. It's no different than a crowded freeway. You put more lanes on it, more traffic can flow. So anyway, I'm going to get started here in a minute. Still waiting for some more people to show up. Hello, Dave Murray, Michael Collis, Tony Wallow. Hi, guys. Sam Kowalski joins us, along with DigiFootage FX, Tommy Peterson, John Craig, Bradley Dunnigan, Richard Hudson, Speedy C, Steve Sabaha, Dr. Smith, William Dawson, Don Beverly, Robert Jones, Ronnie Kajir, Mahai Al Kui. I see Catherine Anna Hauserman is joining us, Terry McGill, Stealth Mode, Steve Devine, John Schaefer, 55, Staying Dude, Laser Break, Bill Parker, Robert Dickin, Dad Cooks, Ron White, Big Honcho, Philip Musto, Bradley Morris, Robin Maltman, Haas Spagan, Frank Pearson, Joris Verhall, Mats Rickardson, William Grice, Richard Geitcher, David Anderson, Arlund 3, Roni 3441, and let's see, John Rice, and Dimitri. Welcome in, guys. Welcome in. So what I've got today, there are two adapters to convert an NVMe M.2 drive into an external USB enclosure. Now, this ends up being super fast. You can't really take advantage of the full speed of the NVMe, but it'll be, you know, it sort of depends on what USB port you're plugging it in. There's USB 1, USB 2, USB 3.0, USB 3.1 Gen 1, USB 3.1 Gen 2. So the maximum speed we're going to see through the USB, if you have the USB 3.1, is going to be 10 gigabits per second. Now, trying to get the web links up here. The first product that I've got is the Sabrent. And I paid for this product, bought it online from Amazon, and this is $50 US, 50. And the folks at Orico asked if I would evaluate theirs. It sells on Amazon for $40, so it's $10 cheaper. Pretty significant difference in the size of the box. This Sabrent drive looks a little more heavy duty on the picture, whereas this one looks a little more generic, but I don't know that it really translates to more durability or running cooler or anything else like that. They should both do a maximum, if I'm not mistaken, 10 gigabits per second. And that's assuming you're using USB, I believe USB Type-C. Well, I suppose the interface doesn't really matter. And this is compatible with all the sizes, basically 2280, 2260, 2240. And I think there's even I'm sorry, 2242. Basically 2280 is the typical M.2 drive. And that looks like a stick of gum. It's 22 millimeters wide and 80 millimeters long. That's why it's called a 2280. Now, there are other sizes, and they're really designed for more portable devices. So things like tablets or even possibly phones would use the smaller size capacity. Mostly phones are just soldering on the memory right on the board. And then adding memory would be like a micro SD card. But regardless of that, it's possible. And that's why the manufacturers make them. They never quite know what's going to catch on and what's going to get cheaper to manufacture, what's going to be faster, etc. So there's a lot of factors involved, in the manufacturers just make whatever they can, as much as they can, and check and see what takes off. So with that said, see, we got about 366 people watching now. I think I want to wait just a few more minutes before we get started here. Now the links to both of these products are in the video notes below this video. And let's start with the expensive one. Let's start with Sabrent or Sabrent. Now the M2 drive I'm going to use, or the M2 NVMe drive, is an Intel 660p. This is a 2 terabyte drive. Now the reason I selected the 2 terabyte drive is it was on sale for $183 for 2 terabytes, M2 NVMe. It's QLC based technology, which means it's not the highest performing. It's about half as fast as a Samsung, high-end like 970 NVMe drive, but it's also half the price, and it's still 4 times faster than SATA. And the cheapest 2 terabyte SATA M2 I could find was $220. So, in an M2 format. So M2 SATA, 2 terabytes, costs more money and is slower than M2 NVMe from Intel on their 660p series. So while it's, again, not as fast as the doubly priced Samsung 970, it is 4 times faster, about 4 times faster than the more expensive SATA version of a 2 terabyte M2 drive. So why would I want to go 1/4 the speed for more money? It doesn't make any sense. And the reason I started this project is I want to be able to have one external storage device that I can store countless images on, or one giant image. If a customer brings me a machine with a 2 terabyte hard drive, I want to be able to load a Cronus on it and image it very, very quickly. Ton Van Belen has contributed €2, and he says, thanks for the case badge. It arrived this week. Right on, thank you for that. And if you guys want a case badge, just go to careyholzman.com, and they're available for sale there. All the money and the proceeds go to supporting the channel. So, they ship anywhere in the world. The case badges will go anywhere in the world. It's a flat price. Everything's included in that price. The shipping, if there's, anything that needs to be done to get it to you, it's all included. So I guess I need to get a knife out so I can open these boxes, and we'll take a look. And like I said, we'll start with the Sabrent. So here's the Intel SSD. We'll go ahead and remove it from the box first. And we're going to use the same SSD. I'm going to move it after we test this drive. We'll move the drive, the internal drive, out and into the other enclosure and run the same test. We'll run it on USB 3.1 because running it on anything less than USB 3.1 is going to reduce your maximum speed through whatever the USB port you have that can handle. Now, as a computer technician, I never quite know what a customer is going to bring me. They could bring me a new computer, an old computer, and so I need a USB drive that works in all computers. And the idea behind this, in theory anyway, is so long as I format it with an MBR partition instead of a GPT partition, regardless if the system has UEFI or not, it should see the drive just fine. Let's get the Sabrent drive out of here. That's taped closed. I was surprised when this arrived at how large it was, or at least how large the package was. I was expecting more of a package this size, so I don't know why Sabrent or Sabrent, I don't know why they have gone with such large packaging. There's foam inside. This thing is all metal, so I'm not quite sure what they're worried about breaking. And it's a solid state circuit board inside with nothing on it. There's no drive installed in it. So I don't quite understand this overly cautious packaging. I mean, in theory, they could just take the device, which is right here, and stick an address label on it and send it just like this, and it would probably arrive just fine, other than the people would know what it was and maybe try and steal it. It's heavy. It is heavy. Let's get all the packaging off of it here. It's got quite a, There's no screws holding it together. It's got quite a lot of weight. It's got some rubber pads that have plastic over it right now, and then it just falls open. There's a thermal pad right here with tape that has to be removed. And that's the entire circuit board. Just that little thing right there is all you need. Now, the other items that just fell out of the package, I've got right here. They've included a small Torx driver, which is actually a really nice tool. That may be the price justification right there. And then there's the USB cable with an adapter on it, so that if you wanted to perhaps plug this into your phone, you could do that. Now, there's one other bag down here, and that's got the screws, and it looks like an extra rubber pad for something. And there's 6 screws, so it looks like they give us 2 extras. In the documentation, there's information about warranty, which I don't care about. This is how you install it, which again is pretty much as easy as that. Now, when you are installing an NVMe drive, it must only have 1 cutout. If it has 2, that's a SATA drive. Or if the cutout isn't aligned properly, it isn't going to plug in. If you have a SATA-based M.2 drive, it simply will not plug in into this socket. It won't fit. And if you try and force it, you're going to break something. So you've got to pay very careful attention when you order a compatible drive, so that you order the right one. So when I did the Silverstone SATA M2 to USB, this drive will not plug into that. It's not compatible. But if you just look at it casually, you say they look the same, but it's when you look at the connector, they look different. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this drive out, and we'll set it down here. And let's take a look at what I have to do to install this. So it's not obvious by looking at it, so I'm going to refer to the documentation here just to see if there's a piece that has to come out. No, there's no other piece that has to come out. So it looks like there's a screw right here at the very end of the device, right up here, and we've got to take that screw out. Then we're going to put the drive in and put the screw back in to hold the drive in place. That's what it appears, but I can't really see it. So let me grab some spectacles. Technology is getting smaller and smaller, and I'm getting older and older. And now that I've looked in there, there does not appear to be a screw in there, and instead we're going to use one of the screws included. So if 4 of these screws are going to go to hold the back on, and then 1 screw goes in to hold the drive, and they've given us a total of 6. That means they're giving us 1 spare, so you can lose 1. So basically what we're going to do is align the groove in the M.2 drive with the notch in the slot, and we'll push it straight down, and it locks in. And that's what that's going to look like. And then when that goes down, it's going to align with that hole. We're going to put a screw in there. So let's do that. We'll open this up. We'll use their driver because it is a very small Torx driver. I'm not quite sure what size that is. Unfortunately, it does not seem to be magnetized, which is not good. You really want that to be magnetized. It makes life a lot easier. And you don't have to over tighten it. You just, all this screw is doing is holding that M2 drive into position. And that's it. Now, when we put the back on, there is a thermal pad here, and it does tell you to remove this. So we're going to go ahead and do that now since we're ready to put it back together. And then that thermal pad is going to sit right on top of the M2 drive. And there is some plastic here on the rubber feet down below, which if you want to remove, you can. And then we can put in the 4 additional screws to secure the drive into the enclosure. Or well, the drive's already secured in the enclosure. We're securing the back of the enclosure. And that's just there to protect the drive. Don't over tighten these screws. It should just go until they will come to like a dead stop. Well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they only gave us 5 screws. I thought I saw 6 in there. Thought they gave us an extra one. Not apparently. There is no extra screw. So I started off by thinking there were 2 extra screws. And then I thought there was 1. Because a lot of times that's pretty common with these tiny screws. They give you extras. But no, there is no extra screw. You need every screw they give you. And in this thermal pad, what is this for? What does the documentation say about that? Does it say anything at all? It's just a rubber foot, but it's already got rubber feet on it, so I don't know. There's no mention of that rubber foot other than the package contents contain it. I don't know. So let's get rid of all this. Don't need it. And there's the completed device, and then we'll use the enclosed cable. And as we do these tests, we're not going to share cables. We're going to use whatever cable comes with the device to ensure that we are giving it every opportunity to perform as advertised, to perform to its best ability without any excuses as to, if the numbers are not what we thought they might be. Now this drive will do a maximum about 2,000 megabytes per second, not megabits, but megabytes per second on the reads and writes when it's installed into an NVMe socket in a motherboard directly. So through USB Type-C, USB 3.1, you'll see here we've got the adapter, which we can use here to convert it to Type-C. And again, for many modern smartphones, you could then theoretically plug this right into your phone to back up data or move data off of the phone. And we're going to come around here, and I'm going to switch you guys over now to, gotta grab the right mouse, to this machine. I've already turned it on, and it's running at the desktop. Okay, so here we are. Set up OneDrive. No, thank you. We'll dismiss that. Okay, now this is a brand new M.2 drive. It'll have no partition and no format on it. And I've got my flash drive installed because I copied off the Crystal Disk Mark software onto the desktop and just forgot to remove it. Now I'm going to plug the USB 3.1 Type-C into the motherboard connector, or the motherboard Type-C connector on the back of the board. There's no power required. It should draw whatever power it needs directly from the computer itself. And because this is the first time I'm using it, I'm going to have to partition and format it. So we'll go to Disk Management. I'm going to use this keyboard. Create and format hard disk partitions. It should automatically see it. I got nothing. So let me just double check, make sure my connectors are fully plugged in. Type-C can be plugged in either way. There's no upside or downside. Ooh, that's awfully loose. Maybe that wasn't in quite right. For some reason, there it goes. It's pretty loose. It has to be pushed in there harder than I'm used to pushing. And then let's go back to disk management again. And let's see if it sees it automatically. So create and format hard disk partitions. There it goes. Now you'll notice it's offering to do a master boot record or a GPT partition. Now I'm going to choose MBR because I want this to be recognizable in any system that I plug it into. If you're only going to use it on one system, GPT is probably more optimized. Since we're not booting from it, I don't really think it matters. So we'll click OK. Then I'll right click here and choose New Simple Volume. Hit Next, 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 and then I can give it a name. We'll call it 2 terabyte USB NVMe, just so I know what it is. Make sure that Perform a Quick Format is checked. We'll hit Next and Finish, and this should just take a moment. It's already done. Let's see how fast it runs. We'll bring up Crystal Disk Mark Portable, running the 64-bit edition of the latest version, which is 6.0.2. And we'll do all tests on this D drive. Got to make sure we select the proper drive we want to test here and hit All. And now we can sit back and wait for the numbers. I want to look and see if this has any LEDs on it that blink and tell me if it's in use. Yes, there's a blue LED here at the end. It's a very tiny LED blinking on and off. Now, the fastest USB drive I've ever tested is around 480, 500 megabytes a second. This is already twice that. And you can see that even if I had spent twice as much money on the Samsung 970 Pro NVMe drive, if we can't even max out this one with performance throughput, then the Samsung drive should theoretically run exactly the same speed, because we're not limited by the speed of the NVMe drive. We're limited by the speed of the USB port that we're plugging into. And this appears to be about as good as that's going to get. So we'll wait and see as it does all the it's going to do all the read tests on the left side going down. Then it'll move over to the right side where it will do all the write tests. And we'll see what all the numbers are. But that is still more than twice as fast as any standard USB thumb drive I've ever seen. Of course, it's a bit larger, but it's also larger in capacity, and price per gigabyte, it's far cheaper, far, far cheaper. Now we're going to start the write tests, starting up at the top, and the write speeds should be about the same. I should see about 1,000 and change. That's what I'm expecting, since I know that the drive is capable of doing twice that speed. The USB port should work equally in performance in both directions. This is taking an awfully long time, which has me concerned. Here we go. Write speed's a little slower for some reason. Still more than twice as fast as any USB flash drive that I've ever purchased or used or experienced. These tests do take a few minutes to run, so be patient. Do not use the computer at all in order to get accurate test results. Just allow the test to run, and don't try and do any multitasking unless you don't want accurate test results. These are impressive numbers, and certainly nothing to sneer at or to try and make any faster. That's very impressive. There's a request to transfer a file to the drive to see real speeds. I'm not going to do that. And the reason I'm not going to do it is it's not an accurate benchmark of performance. And the reason for that is if you're moving, let's say, a directory that has a lot of little tiny files, that performance will be different than, let's say, if I'm copying yesterday's YouTube video over 1 gigabyte in size. One large file will perform differently than many small files. And in the real world, you won't be copying just big files or just small files. There'll be some weird combination of whatever you need to do at that time. So this is, in my opinion, the best overall benchmark of what you can expect, and that's why it has these 4 different performance tests. But I can tell you that this should be far faster than any other storage medium that you can plug into USB. Hands down, that should be it. As far as I know, if it's USB 3.1 Gen 1, we are maxing out on that read speed. I could be incorrect, but I think that's the maximum it can pull. So doing anything else to try and improve the speed, spending more money on an NVMe drive, disabling indexing, none of that matters, because that's not a bottleneck. If we're maxing out the performance, it's not going to go any faster than the max. So I'll wait for this test to complete. It's taking an interesting, to me, it's an interesting waiting period because this test normally doesn't take this long, and I don't quite understand why. But regardless, I'm going to be patient and let it finish. It does tell us at the top of the window that it does 5 of these of each one, and then averages out the 5 or takes the best of the 5. I'm not sure which one it does. But it still normally moves quicker than that. The write speeds and the read speeds, the results should take about the same amount of time to perform. So I'm a little concerned about that. Do I think that this or the M2 SATA enclosure will install Windows 10 any faster than the SanDisk flash drive? I don't know. I'm not really too concerned about it because Windows 10 installs so much faster than Windows 8 or Windows 7 or Windows XP or Windows 98 or Windows Millennium or Windows 95. The install is so fast. When you come from my world where you're used to, an hour for an install to take place on an operating system many, many years ago to taking about 15 minutes today, if I can shave off, what would be my benefit? If I can shave it down from 15 minutes down to 12, it's not significant in my world. Going from an hour to 15 minutes, that's a significant savings. So bearing that in mind, there gets to be a point of diminishing returns. When you start getting down into minutes and seconds, how much do you think you can save? You understand what I'm saying? If I use this example at a pharmacy when I said I'll pay cash for the medication. They said, well, the medication's $4. You sure you don't want to use your insurance? I go, I guarantee it will not be $4 cheaper or more than that, it's $4. There gets to be a point of diminishing returns. Now, if the medication was $40, that'd be different, but for $4, just pay the cash and get out of there. When you reach these point of diminishing returns, you start to realize at some point in your life, I hope, that the amount of time you're investing is not returning an equivalent back to you for your investment of time in upgraded performance. So to me, it doesn't make any sense to pursue an extra megahertz or an extra kilobyte when you're dealing with thousands of them. When you're dealing with thousands of them, what difference does one make? Wow, that really seems stuck. The light is blue. We may get a did not finish. We may get a DNF on this test. It's not good. Not good at all. So I'm going to stop the test because this is not, there's something wrong now. I've waited too long. So I'm going to hit stop and we'll see how long it takes to respond to that stop request. You'll know when it's stopped because the word stop that's written on all these buttons, that will go away and it'll become the name of the test down each row. But it absolutely does not want to stop. Can I force it? I'm losing my patience with this. And remember, the test size here is a gigabyte right up here. You can choose your test size. And I always do the 1 gig test size because it's the default and I run it across every storage medium, whether it's a USB drive, a hard drive, a solid state drive, M2 drive. In order to get a baseline for a comparison, you can't keep changing these numbers and then compare them with other tests with different numbers. It's not an accurate comparison. So I keep everything the same. Everything is defaulted to the values of the software, the portable software as it runs by default. So let me go back here and see if we can force this down because this is, now it's getting upsetting. Tell you what, I'm going to restart the computer. That'll force it. That is very strange and doesn't look well for the more expensive drive. It is possible that USB connector is just fitting too loose. And I'm just going to hit reset. We're going to force it. In the meantime, I've missed a few contributions. Let me give a few shouts out to some generous folks here who've contributed to today's broadcast. Colin Hunt just contributed £5. He says, have a Coke on me or a spring water. Thanks, Colin. David Anderson's contributed $1.99. Dreamtide024 has contributed $5. And Zarian Art, Drawing Tutorials and Speed Paints, contributed $1. And Bill Carter contributed $1.99. Now, there were a couple questions here. Dreamtide wants to know, do you get any demand for solid-state hybrid hard drives? Solid-state hybrid hard drives, hold on, let's do this. Solid-state hybrid hard drives. They were designed by the manufacturers when solid-state drives had originally been introduced to the market, and they were prohibitively expensive and very small in capacity. And so what the hard drive manufacturers did is they came up with this idea that we can put a small solid-state buffer on a mechanical drive to use as a cache, and that'll give the illusion of better performance. But by the time they came to market with these hybrid drives, the solid-state drive prices had plummeted, no longer making hybrid drives even considerable for purchase. You shouldn't even consider them. They should have never come to market because by the time they came to market, they were already overpriced and too slow when compared to just buying a solid-state drive. Now, if the solid-state drive prices had remained high and capacities remained low, I'd be talking more about hybrid drives. You'll never see a hybrid drive on this channel. You've never seen one on this channel. You've never seen a computer come in here with one. They are an absolute mistake in timing from the time that they had this idea to the time they brought it to market. And therefore, in my opinion, they're a complete waste of money. If you need big storage, go with a mechanical drive as of May 2019. If you want fast storage up to 4 terabytes, go to a solid state drive. Well, preferably up to 2 terabytes. Anything more than that gets quite a bit expensive. But as I mentioned, I have this 2 terabyte solid state drive in the NVMe drive in the enclosure, $183. Now again, when you are in the industry, as long as I've been in the industry, you understand just how affordable that is. But with each generation, the younger folks, they come into the world with that being the norm, and they want it cheaper than that. They don't have the point of reference that those of us in the industry have, with the sense of appreciation of just how far and how quickly this technology has come in performance, how small the technology keeps getting smaller and smaller, faster and faster, and cheaper and cheaper. And that trend will continue. Now, as these younger people who think that's too expensive, and again, there's older people who think it's too expensive, but generally it's the younger generation because they don't have the point of reference of where we came from. They didn't drop $8,400 on a 5 megabyte hard drive in 1986. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, 83. And in that amount of time, keeping in mind that $8,400 in 1983 money is probably closer to $12,000, $13,000, $14,000 today. So that's a lot of money to spend for storage, but there wasn't much to store. You know, you pretty much had to create your own data. There weren't scanners, you weren't scanning pictures, there wasn't any music, you weren't doing any of that. In fact, those early computers didn't have anything other than a beep, a PC speaker in it. So the technology's come quite far, and it will continue. And where we're at today is absolutely amazing for the value of what you're getting regarding performance and capacity. So I just want to emphasize that. And so hybrid drives, in my opinion, are a complete waste of money. Once the solid state portion of it fails, once it hits its right capacity, which happens much faster because it's a much smaller capacity. And so as you continue to load, and Windows loads files in the background, downloading updates and swap files, it just eats it up. And then you end up with a hard drive that's far slower than a drive that never had that to begin with. So that's why I say, pick a hard drive or pick a solid state drive. Using a hybrid drive, in my opinion, would have made sense only if solid state drives continued to be very cost prohibitive and small in size. In my opinion, hybrid drives are a complete and utter waste of money, and they always have been. The day hybrid drives came to market, they were obsolete. They were already obsolete because by the time they came to market, solid state drive prices had already plummeted and capacities were already starting to go up. They just took too long. So that's my opinion on that. There was another question in here. Can you explain indexing a bit more? You can Google indexing. I won't go into it. But basically, we're on a solid state drive. I turn indexing off to save space. It's really not an issue of performance anymore, not with a modern computer, but it does free up valuable solid state drive space. And that's why my optimizer turns it off. William Lundy's contributed $2 New Zealand. Thank you, William. And Z Media has contributed $2 and says, what do you think of Intel Optane chips? Well, Intel Optane chips are just, if you have a hard drive, a mechanical drive that's not a hybrid drive, by using an Intel Optane chip, you turn it into a hybrid drive. Now, if you're just hung up on mechanical drives, I feel bad for you. Intel Optane chips are for mechanical drive users only. At this point, in where we're living right now in 2019, unless you are an extreme user with regards to data hoarding, or you're in a corporate environment, you should not be using mechanical drives. They're too prone to failure, they're too slow, and they're too noisy. Get yourself a solid state drive, back your stuff up into the cloud where you don't have to worry about drive failures. If you've got tons and tons of stuff, you don't need to hear advice from me. One of the things I've learned is there are some people who don't quite understand the gist of the channel. So if I say, for example, that this drive performs really well, there's at least one person in the viewers that watches it, they go, Well, not if you do, and then they name some very vertical, isolated type of tech like video editing that 95% of my viewers or my intended viewers don't do with their computer. It's far too complicated for them, or they're not interested. But if you're doing that kind of work, then you should already know this. So to come in with the knowledge and to police the channel is effectively what you're doing is incredibly offensive to me. The video wasn't intended for people like that. Those people already know what they need. So to come in and dictate to me that, well, under these conditions, that drive's not as good. Those aren't normal conditions. Under the sense that they're not typical conditions. Normal's not the right word. They're not typical. They're not common. They may be common among people who do that kind of work, maybe, because even then, video editing could be making 15-second clips. It could be making 360-degree videos. It could be making 8K videos. It could be making 1-hour videos. All of that places different demands on the entire machine, not just your storage. So with that being said, people that do that kind of work, they should already know their answer. And quite often they make it clear in the chat that they do and that the information doesn't apply to them. But what they fail to realize through their own narcissism is that information was never intended for them. It wasn't titled for them, and it wasn't in that subject of when you categorize the video, we're not in the category of video editing. There are channels and forums for, I'm using video editing here because the person that said it the other day was talking about video editing, but whatever the niche is that you use your computer for, photo editing, maybe you're in a studio recording music, you have unique needs that don't represent the vast majority of viewers here on this channel. And you would be better suited going to one of those channels if that's the information you're looking for. I just want to be very clear here that my channel is designed for the everyday home user and for people that are interested in becoming technicians, to make them aware of what the real world as a technician is actually like versus what they see more often than not on YouTube, which are just enthusiasts and hobbyists having a good time. So I have, right now, Intel Optane chips are only for mechanical drive owners looking for a little more performance. When Intel improves the Optane chips to become solid state drives, pure solid state drives in large capacities, they may be very impressive and I may change my recommendation. However, it's not there yet. Thomas M has contributed $5. He says, received your badge and doubled the speed of my computer the moment it was attached. Thanks, Thomas. Thanks for the contribution. And Andrew Dorsett's contributed $2 New Zealand dollars. He says, thanks for all your knowledge, Carey. Right on. Thanks, you guys. Appreciate that very much. Yeah. I going back to hybrid drives, I just feel bad for anybody who owns one. I just feel bad that you wasted your money on it. I think they're horrible. Hold on a second. All right, sorry about that. More computer parts, and none of those parts are hybrid drives. Okay, so I'm gonna run this test one more time. I wanna give it one more chance. I wanna plug the other, I'm gonna take the USB-C adapter off, and I'll plug it into the red port here, which should also still be USB 3.1. And we'll plug that in right there. And then let's switch back over on the video input. And let's try this test again. Make sure we selected right drive. Drive's not there, okay. There does seem to be some weird connection problem happening. Well, the drive light is blue. It's plugged in. Why does it not appear? Let's take another look a little closer. Let's close that. Let's go back to disk management again. Maybe during the write cycle, something happened. Create and format disk partitions. So it does not see the drive at all. I'm going to unplug it again. I'm going to make sure that that's plugged in all the way. We'll plug it in right here. The blue light does come on. We got nothing. Let's plug it into just a USB 3 port. Will it see it then? Yes. So the red port, for some reason, just isn't working. Let's see what the performance is on USB 3.0, just out of curiosity. And all the flash drives I've got are USB 3.0, and those are running about 400. The fast ones are they're under 500 megabytes a second, in the upper 400s. Let's see if this one does any better than that. And maybe you can see that blue light now that I've turned it a little bit there. There is a blue light at the edge of the drive that should flash. Well, that speeds can't be right. Oh, I'm on the C drive. See what I did there? I didn't change the testing drive. I was on C. Stop the test. Now let's go to the D drive. Let's try that again. We should see that blue light blinking on and off as it performs the sequential read test. Yeah, so clearly we're limited by the speed of the USB port. So that's no faster than a SanDisk Extreme thumb drive. Still cheaper for this capacity and physically larger and heavier, but the performance is not any better. So I'm going to stop this test because there's no reason to complete that. Got to use the right mouse. And I'm going to unplug the drive, and we're going to go back to USB Type-C again. That felt like a more positive click when it went in. But does the computer see it? No, computer is not seeing the drive on USB 3.1. Now, I don't know if it's the cable. I've got a USB Type-C cable. Let me grab it just to see. Now remember, this is the expensive drive. This one is $10 more than the other one. So this is not boding well for it currently. But I'm also not an expert with this. I've never used one of these before, so I may be doing something wrong. Though it shouldn't, the technology today should not make it possible for you to do anything wrong. Oh, you know what? I think that's a Thunderbolt cable. That's not, is it Thunderbolt or Type-C? It should be the same thing. Let's find out. This is like a $30 cable. It's ridiculous. That's this cable here. And let's try it out. Let's see if this makes any difference. Nope. It just is not going to see it. So we don't have a cable problem, and we don't have a drive problem. It just isn't going to see it. That's fascinating to me. Okay. Well, given that situation, I think it's time we move on and test the other device and see if it works any better. So what I will do is switch us over back to the main camera. There I am. And for what this costs, I would be very upset. In fact, this would go back in the box and be returned because it is not performing anywhere near like I'm expecting it to. Now, I haven't tried it in another computer just to see if there's perhaps a driver-related issue with the USB 3.1 slot. However, we'll see if the other drive performs the same or if it performs completely differently. If the other drive has the same issue, I'll pull out the laptop I've got. This is also USB 3.1, and we'll try it on there. But it's quick enough to just open this up and pull the drive out of it. There's like no pull handle or anything on this, and now that the thermal pad is on there, it's kind of forcing it to stick closed. I'm not sure how you're... There's another design issue as far as I'm concerned. It's like the manufacturer only considered you putting it together once, when the whole benefit of this is that you're able to open it and replace it or upgrade it, it being the M.2 drive inside. But now with the tacky thermal pad sitting on top of it, it's sort of glued the bottom on. And that's, to me, it's not a good design. There should be some sort of a pull tab or a notch that I can put a small screwdriver in and pry this up. So what I have to do now is find a very small screwdriver. Hopefully that'll get in there. Oh, you know what I've got that'll work? I've got a spudger. Somewhere in here, I bought one. Didn't know I would be using it today. The first time I heard that word spudger was from Mitch. I said, were you just making words up? He goes, no, it's a little tool you use for opening up like smartphones and laptops and things. And I'm like, yeah, you mean a guitar pick? He said, well, yeah, I suppose you could use it. This is the iSesamo. It's a very common one. And they're pretty inexpensive on Amazon. And it's just a tool that lets you try to pry apart plastic without marring it or scratching it. This tool drew my eye because it's metal. It's not made of plastic, which I was concerned about. It's got a rubberized label on it that's lifted, which makes it more comfortable to hold. And then what I should be able to do is stick this into the space between where the bottom meets. Even that's too wide. Can't get it in there. Maybe I should go this side because the other side has a circuit board on it. There's just no space for me to get that in. Wow. Well, this is not expected. Maybe I can just... Okay. So what I've done is I've just put the driver in the hole and sort of bent it back this way. And you could feel that thermal pad sort of unstick from the top of the M2. So keep that in mind if you ever have to open one up. And they should put that in the documentation. And we'll put these tools, or these screws here rather, over there. We'll take the M2 drive out, and then I'm just gonna turn this back around and set it there because I don't want any dust collecting on that thermal pad. Now we've got the Orico or Orrico M.2. Again, the link for this is in the video notes below the video, and all the specifications here on the back. This one is $10 less on Amazon. It's smaller and lighter. Does that mean it's built with less quality? Will it perform better? Will it perform the same? I don't know. There's the drive, the enclosure rather, in the box. More of like the Silverstone, more of the traditional size, which is what I was expecting. And then behind this plastic, we'll probably have our USB cable. And we do. There's our USB cable. Ooh, that's really short. There's another one. So we've got USB Type-C to Type-C and USB Type-C to Type-A. But these cables are maybe 6 inches. They're very short cables. We get a much longer cable with this unit. You get a pretty cheap screwdriver, just like you do with the SATA enclosures. This is more matching the SATA enclosures. There's a bag of screws with the little standoff, and there's documentation. And I shouldn't need any of that because this should follow the same process. In this case, the screw would just be on the back. There's just one screw right there in the middle. It's not there right now. And that appears to be the only way that holds the back on, which is good. Instead of 4 screws on the back, just one makes more sense to me. Let's see if I can get this open. How are you supposed to open it? Now again, I am intentionally not reading any documentation because this should be pretty straightforward. I can't figure out how to open it. Something seems to be holding it in. What is holding it in? So I will go to the documentation and see what it says here. Does anybody read Chinese? Oh, there it is in English. Slide the bottom case toward the other end of the Type-C connector. Huh? Slide the bottom case toward the other end of the Type-C connector. So I know those words, just not in that order. I think I was better off without those. Let's try this again. Once again, very difficult to open. Don't know why it's not coming out. Am I supposed to slide it forward? Oh, slide it forward. Like that. And then you can see where the screw's going to go in, that just sticks out right up there. And I should be able to just pull that open. We have a much longer circuit board. There's 2 thermal pads in there. One is ripped. I don't know why. And there's no protection on them, so I just lightly touched it. Don't touch them. You don't want to get the oils from your skin on there. It's not going to kill it. It just lessens its effectiveness, its efficacy. Now we'll take the bag of screws that were included. Let me put my glasses back on because this is detailed work. The screws are very tiny. We're dealing with lots of little tiny parts here. And those of us that are older, you know what I'm talking about. So we've got 2 standoffs. I don't know why you've given us 2 standoffs. Let's see, there's 2 really small screws, 1 microscopic screw, and then 2 normal size screws. Huh, all right. So with the M.2 drive, our NVMe drive, we're gonna turn the circuit board around. And we'll place the M2 drive into its socket right here. And that standoff has to go in that rear hole, obviously, to line up. So we'll grab that. It's got a little groove in the standoff. There's two of them. They're both the same. And that groove is going to go into the groove on the M2 drive, like so. Doesn't appear to have a up or a down, that both sides have a hole on both sides for the screw to secure it. So which screw secures it? Is it the super tiny one or the sort of tiny one? I bet it's the sort of tiny one. I don't know what that super tiny one is for. That's weird. So we're going to grab this one right here. We'll put that there. And we'll use their screwdriver just to see how their tool works. And that has secured the drive onto the circuit board, just like so. Now we can place this back in the enclosure, which is with this M.2 drive facing down. It's going to go right in there. It's already sticking to the thermal pad. I can't really tell how this is supposed to align. There doesn't seem to be any, no matter where I place it, it sticks on the thermal pad. I can't really tell if it's seated. You know, it looks like it could go here, it could go a little higher, it could go a little lower. It's really hard to tell where that's supposed to go. Maybe it's supposed to go with the port sticking out. No, it doesn't seem to. Don't know. Let's see what the other side does when we got to put it on. Place that down. Oh yeah, it wants that sticking out. So it wants the USB-C port sticking out as far as I can. So I want to take this as close to the top edge as I can get it. Which will be maybe right there. Is that fully seated? I can't tell. That is, there's no sort of positive feedback with regards to whether or not I've seated it correctly. And what's happening is it won't allow me to put this back in. It looks like that USB port really has to stick out big time. So let me just try and move it up as high as I can get it. So now we're sticking out that USB port quite a bit. Like I said, there doesn't seem to be anything indicating where that's supposed to go. So it's sort of have to play with it. And then that should fit right inside like that, and then we can push it forward. And it's already slid back a little bit. Well, I suppose I'm just doing it backwards now that I've sort of made a mistake here. So if we place this drive in here first, this makes more sense, and I'm sure the documentation probably told us to do this. Place the drive in there, and then set it down. That looks like that's in properly, even though it's not seating flush. There it goes. Now I can take this piece. We have to set it back a little bit, and then slide it forward. which it doesn't want to do with those thermal pads. So that's the other problem. Now with the thermal pads, they're sticking to the circuit board, preventing me from sliding this forward. So installing it that way isn't going to work for me. And why there's thermal pads on this side, I don't... Oh yeah, because that's the side that needs the thermal pads. So why is there thermal pads on the other side? I don't know. All right, that seems to have gone on. And then probably one of these long screws, I'm going to guess, is what goes on the end. Again, not a magnetized screwdriver, which makes this a little more difficult than it should be. So I'm going to grab my screwdriver instead of theirs because I don't want to mess with this all day. You know, that's too big of a screw. It's got to be the smaller one, but not the tiniest one. I still don't know what that really tiny screw is for. Yep, that's the right screw. So the same screw I used on the M.2 is the same screw that goes into the back of the enclosure. Now we're ready to test it. So I'm going to grab the short USB 3.1 to 3.1 type C cable here. Like I say, it's a pretty short cable. And then let's take this, plug it in here, and plug it in here. Do I have any lights or anything? Yeah. Blue light on the end just like the other one. And then does the computer see this one? I'm not seeing it. Let's go back to disk management. Okay, so that tells me the problem is going to be either with this motherboard, with the drivers that are being used here, or, well, it can't be the drive itself having an issue because it does work with the Type A cable. So in fact, I'm going to borrow the other company's cable, the competitor's cable, just to see if that makes any difference. I am getting a blue light just like I was before, but for some reason, I'm just not seeing the drive, which suggests to me some sort of a driver-related issue. Because it's not appearing here. Let's try going in the device manager. Go to the task manager. More details. No, that's not what I want. Let's go to the control panel. Go to system. Device manager. Everything looks good in here. They plug it into USB 3.0 and it shows up. Interesting. So, just to verify if it's a driver issue, I'm going to grab a laptop I've got here. This is a Dell XPS 15. And we'll see if it does the same thing. So we're going to fire that up. And let me switch you back over to the main camera. We'll shut this down. Let's close this. And let's close that. And let's shut this down. And then we'll switch it back over to the main camera. There we go. And we're going to run the same tests. Once again, we'll run them here. And this goes with the other drive. This is the one that came with this drive. Where's my video? Okay, that should be starting up. The battery should be charged on there, I hope. I'm going to put these spare screws back in this little baggie. And we're going to plug this into the Type-C. This is actually Thunderbolt on this laptop. We'll plug it in right here off the side. It's a good start. It recognizes it. We can open it. It's great. No problem. There's a crystal disk mark file that's open. We'll close that out and empty the recycle bin. And let me grab crystal disk mark real quick. I know you guys can't see, just give me a second. Crystal disk mark, there it is. All right, let's run crystal disk mark 64. Select the D drive and do all tests. And then I'll just zoom you in on there so you can see. Let's go this way. There we go. Let's see what kind of numbers we get. Not as good. We were getting 1,000 before. Still, 780 is not terrible, but we weren't getting 1,000 on this one. We were getting 1,000 on the Sabrent. So it appears I probably have some kind of a driver-related issue going on with the other machine. What you guys need to understand with these enclosures is you cannot confuse SATA with NVMe. The M2 drives will not plug into an incompatible socket. Again, to the naked eye, if you're not noticing the details, it may appear they look the same to you, but they are not. And that's to prevent you from plugging a SATA-based M2 into an NVMe-based socket or vice versa. So that's not even an option to consider that, the device wasn't designed for the M2 drive that I plugged in, or would not have been possible for me to plug the drive in. So that's pretty good on the reads. It's not as good as what the Sabrent drive has done. There's some question as to whether or not the laptop being on battery could affect the performance, and that's why we run both tests on the same machine with the same M2 drive connected in the same way, because if the performance is affected, then it should also affect the Sabrent drive equivalently. Now that is much better. We're seeing 817 on the writes. The writes and the reads should be nearly identical, since again we are not maxing out on the performance capability of the internal M2 NVMe drive that I placed in there. It could easily go nearly 3 times faster than that if it were installed into the computer on the motherboard, where it had full access to the PCIe lanes. So you can see USB 3.1 is nowhere near as fast as that, but it's still faster than other USBs that come before it. Other people are asking me to use other testing software. I do not use other testing software. And again, the reason I don't is to have a consistent benchmark across all of my videos. You'll always see me use Crystal Disk Mark, and that way you can look and compare other drives that I've tested and see how they compare against each other, because I don't know which drives a particular viewer is interested in. And while there are other benchmarks available, I don't want to this is something nerds do. This is something people that are into technical details, they will flood themselves with information to the point where the information becomes invalid, in my opinion. You need to pick with one benchmark, stick with one benchmark, and then you have something to base everything against. Even if the benchmark is not providing you the most accurate results, and I'm saying if, that's irrelevant. What matters is how each item compares. So if one item is performing better, regardless of what those numbers are, it will be consistently better, regardless of the accuracy of the measurement that's being done. Basically, what I'm saying is, if you have a gauge and that gauge has a red line, or that gauge has numbers, the red line's a little vague, right? But regardless of that, if you're in the red and another device you test is not in the red, the results are the same. You're able to determine which drive runs faster. Now, this test completed as I expected it, in the amount of time that I expected it to take. And those numbers are a bit lower. I was expecting about 1,000 on each side. I know the drive is capable of it. So now the question is that just the limitation of this particular enclosure? I don't know. So now we're going to take that drive back out, put it back in the Sabrent drive, and run the same test on the laptop again. So let me move the camera. And let's back it up a little bit here. I'm looking at a delayed feed, so give me a second because I can't see. Here we go. Let's back that off. And let's eject this drive. So we'll close Crystal Disk Mark. And where's my eject? Right there. Okay, we're ready to eject it. Now, it's kind of warm. It's not hot, but it's definitely warm. And I'm going to open this back up. We'll keep that USB cable over. Put that up here. And we're going to remove this drive. I suppose I really didn't need to put that screw back in since I was just opening it up anyway. And then we slide this forward. Or slide it down. It slides down. Looking at the USB port, you go down from there. There we go. Yeah, I don't like the way this goes together. Okay, and I'm going to put this back the way it was, which was how? It's like this one in there like that. And then this one went on like this and slid up. And then these screws go back in this bag. I'm trying to keep it all together. Trying to keep each device separate for the most accurate review and the ability to reuse these later. Let's put that one in there. That one in there. That one in there. Okay, so all of that goes with this cable and that cable over there. Now we'll go back to the Sabrent drive. This installation is a lot clearer on the Sabrent drive. I'm just going to slide the drive, the M2 drive in there. And we'll grab their screwdriver and one of their screws. Piece this back together here. Boy, I wish that screwdriver was magnetized. I think I'm going to magnetize it because it's driving me crazy. I got my screwdriver magnetizer tool right here. Now we should have some magnetism on here we can use. No, still not magnetized. Lovely. All right. It's like the tip on it may not be steel. It may be some alloy that's, you can't magnetize aluminum, for example. I don't know. And once again, making sure the thermal pad is going to be over the M2 drive. And then we'll just put these screws in real quick. And again, in theory, for my testing purposes, I really don't need to secure this down, but it does help to make better contact with the thermal pad. As these drives get hot, they could throttle their speeds down, so keep that in mind. So for the most accurate test possible, I want to do what you would do at home, right? You wouldn't be having it, or you shouldn't be having it disassembled. You should take it out of the box, put your M2 drive in there, and then turn the 4 screws and be done with it. Now we're going to use their included cable, Sabrent's included cable, which I have over here with the adapter. And we'll plug in here, set that there, and then we'll plug the adapter on to reduce this down to the Type C connector. And then we'll go right there. So far, so good. And then we're going to run Crystal Disk Mark Portable. It's already got Drive D selected. And we hit all on the test. And let's see what these numbers look like. We'll go back over. Right there. Well, that's not good at all. What I'm guessing is it's that USB cable. I'm going to just go ahead and let the test finish. But I think that USB adapter is a bad idea. I think the Sabrent enclosure is a better enclosure. Easier to work on, it's heavier, it just seems better built. Also easier to remove and assemble to put your M2 drive in it. But that USB cable is terrible. It might be good, you know, as a Type C to Type A, but to convert the Type A back to Type C on the other end doesn't seem to be cutting the mustard there. So I'm gonna try a different USB cable. So you know what, I'm not gonna let this finish. Let's just stop it. I'm getting impatient. And I'm going to use this USB cable here that I've got. And I'm not even going to stop it. I'm just going to unplug it. Let's get rid of that. Let's go with this cable. That cable seemed to even sit in further. Maybe I didn't have it plugged in all the way. Definitely seems like it's seated much better. Now let's run the test again. Okay, so here's what we know. Both enclosures seem to run the same speed. So for the money, I think the Orico is a better value. For quality, I think the Sabrent is built better. As far as the ease of which that the Sabrent can be opened and the drive replaced, the Sabrent drive is easier. The smaller drive from Orico, which is $10 cheaper, you can feel the savings. You can feel that $10 savings. I do believe that Sabrent is including, I don't know, a cable that's just, it's not good for their product. They should have included two separate cables rather than a cable with an adapter, in my opinion. The adapter, because it's so wide, it can get in the way of plugging things in. They're much better off with a straight through USB Type-C to USB Type-C. So I think the cables that you're getting with the Orico drive are better cables, but the drive itself is harder for you to get in there and work on it. Now that being said, you should only have to do that once or very rarely. But the numbers look identical here. We'll see if the writes get up into 800 like they did on the other drive, but they're performing identical. But I will say the Orico is 3 or 4 times heavier. It certainly feels like more substantial of a product. The screwdriver they include is far better. I just wish it were magnetized. And it is $49.99 at Amazon. The Orico is $39.99 at Amazon. So the only question is, why was I getting 1,000 on the desktop and I'm only getting 782 on the laptop? I don't know, but that's really impressive. I have to tell you, I'm used to USB flash drives running between the 200 and 300 range. And if you get a real nice, expensive SanDisk Extreme Pro, you can get into the 450, 470 range. We haven't quite doubled that, but we're so much faster that if I want to use this to put a Cronus on a machine and back it up, it's going to happen very, very quickly, much more quickly than any other external storage device that I can attach. In fact, this will be faster than my network. This will be faster than any other flash drive I've got. If you know a way to plug an external drive into a machine to image it that'll be faster than this drive right here, please tell me what it is. Because as far as I'm concerned, this is the best we can go with USB in its current state, that you would still be able to take that flash drive and plug it into other computers. Like if you're a technician like I am and you work on computers of all different eras, they all have USB ports now. I want to be able to use that flash drive on anything a customer brings in. So I don't want any suggestions for something proprietary that would only work on one machine. Remember that depending on the USB port you plug the drive into, that's going to determine the speed of the drive, the performance of the drive, up to what we're seeing right now. And the test is just about complete. And that's it. There's the test. Those are your final numbers. So in conclusion, let's get this moved. Let's get the camera moved now. In conclusion, both drives, both enclosures, I mean to say, perform identically. This thing told me there were some updates here. Where did it go? Oops. We'll let that do a quick scan. Let's disconnect flash drive. I definitely like the weight and feel of it. This is, like I said, a $30 cable, and I would just keep that cable with it, quite frankly. And I'm going to keep that drive in that enclosure. I'm not actually going to use this one, at least not today. I think that one's better. If you ask me, would I pay $10 more for this one? Yes, I would. Absolutely, I would. But if money's the issue and you don't care with regards to how difficult it is to open or close, you don't mind the silver color. In fact, I think the Sabrent one was actually $60. I think the black color is $10 more. I don't know why. I think the silver color is $50 and the black color is $60. So I want to say this was $60. And then this is $30, so this would be $40. So not quite half the price in silver. I don't know. Some people that matters. I'm going to visit Dell Update on this laptop and tell me what it's got. Okay, so that's going to wrap up that review. That's my conclusion. And I want to reiterate that buying a faster NVMe drive would be a complete waste of money, at least as long as you keep it in current enclosures. If you were to put it into an enclosure that hasn't been invented yet, that works with USB 4 or 3.2, which again aren't available yet, but certainly a possibility to consider when you're purchasing your drive, that, you know, the internal drive, that you may not use that forever. Critical updates. Let's see. I'm just going to have this do updates while we're talking. We'll let that run. Whoops, I canceled it. These touchpads drive me crazy because they can be so sensitive. So I'll come back to that in a minute. So in the meantime, if anybody's got any questions related to external storage or technology in general, I'll be happy to take this time to answer any questions you may have. Let me just let this run in the background while we're talking. Come on now. Install. There it goes. Do new machines have USB Type-C connectors already? They've had Type-C connectors for about 2 to 3 years. So yes. Not all new machines. It depends on which, if you're building yourself, which motherboard you select. If that's important, look for that feature. And then of course, on pre-builts, you'll have to look and see if it's included. It affects the price of the motherboard, right? So depending on the chipset of the board will determine if it supports that and whether or not the manufacturer includes it. If you're just somebody racing to the bottom looking for the cheapest prices all the time, you're probably not going to have it. Not that it's expensive, it's just not going to be the cheapest thing you can buy. Are you going to retest the external NVMe drive on the desktop again? Not during a live video. I'm going to have to figure out why it's not seeing it, and that's going to require a little research. This is a customer's machine, and I want to make sure that it does work, just in case the customer wants to use that. I need to make sure that that's functioning. What's the big difference between USB 3.1 and Thunderbolt? Performance. USB 3.1 Gen 1 will run about 10 gigabits per second. Thunderbolt 3 will run 40 gigabits per second. So Thunderbolt 3 is faster, and I believe you can daisy chain some items in Thunderbolt 3 together, which you cannot do with USB. Would you use an NVMe drive as a NAS drive? Absolutely not. That is a complete waste of money. I wouldn't buy a Ferrari just to drive it up and down 40-mile-an-hour roads. That's a complete waste of money for the Ferrari. The NVMe drive is capable of speeds up to 3,500 megabytes per second, or in this case, up to 2,000 megabytes per second on the Intel 660p series QLC. That being said, network speeds don't operate anywhere near that. Now, there are big data centers where they're having multiple requests through 10 gigabit connections, and even that won't scratch the surface of what even an Intel 660p can do. So in my opinion, that would be a waste of money. You'd be putting something rocket ship fast, and then you would just be attaching straws to it. It'd be like having a big drink with a little straw. You can't chug that. Your limit is how much you can get through the straw. It's not like you can just dump the whole glass and empty it. So to me, it's a waste of money. It'll work. You could absolutely do it, but I wouldn't. Technology's not there yet. Not ready for that yet. Where'd my Dell update go? There we go. I'll bring that. It's already done some updates. I'm just going to keep doing this while we're talking. I haven't really had much time to spend on this laptop, but the little time that I have spent with it, I'm real happy with it. That's the Dell XPS 159570. It's what I'll be taking with me to Michigan, and I'll be live streaming, and that'll do all the work. I'll hook a camera right into that through a Blackmagic device, through the Thunderbolt. It's the USB 3.1 is also Thunderbolt on this laptop because it's Intel. There's no Thunderbolt on AMD because Thunderbolt's an Intel-based product. Let's see if I've missed any other questions here in the chat room. Carey, if the Windows 10 update 1903 did not come to the Windows update, what can I do? I've explained this over and over and over again, so I'm going to try again. It will come through Windows Update when it's ready. If you want to force it, you have to download the Windows 10 Update Assistant. When you saw me do it on my live video, you saw me use the Windows 10 Update Assistant. You didn't see me get it through Windows Update. If you want the same results I get in my videos, you must do things exactly the way you see me do them. If you do not pay attention to the details, you're just going to be confused. It's frustrating to me that I have to keep saying the same things over and over. It's really frustrating. I do appreciate your questions, but when the same questions get asked that are clearly answered right from the get-go, it should have never been asked. That information in the 1903 video is explained very thoroughly because I emphasized it. You know why I emphasized it? So no one would ask me that question. But guess what? It didn't work. I have to come up with another way of communicating because that is not working. All right, let's install some more updates. What else do we have? How did the enclosure quality compare with the Silverstone? I would say this Sabrent is solid and heavy and better than the Silverstone enclosure. And I would say this Orico is cheap. It's built with a similar quality. but the mechanism to open it and install the drive is far worse. So I would put the Silverstone right in the middle between these two. But the Silverstone is designed for SATA M2, not for NVMe M2. Old School Funk wants me to do a summary for those who arrived late. Well, for those who arrived late, you should learn how to use YouTube. This video is completely rewindable right now as you're watching this. You do not need to come in and ask other people to have to listen to me repeat myself because you did not show up on time, when all you have to do is drag your mouse back and you can watch whatever you want to watch anytime you're ready. That's a great benefit of having the DVR mode turned on, and it's why I do it. It can be very frustrating when somebody walks in and asks 660 other people to please stand by while I explain for one person what they missed. All that one person has to do, it's self-empowerment, man. Just wind that video backwards. Right now, you can do it right now. You can wind this video all the way back to the beginning. Fred says, thank you for the birthday wish. Hey, happy birthday, Fred. I said happy birthday to Fred on Facebook earlier today. Carey, is there a number of hours that you should run a laptop? I don't know what that question means. Is there a number of hours you should run a car? I don't understand your question. What else do we have? For the same price and speed on USB, is it better to go M2 NVMe or SATA? Depends on the size of the drive and the cost of the enclosure and what your budget is. It just depends what's right for you. The NVMe drive will be faster on USB 3.1, but if you don't have USB 3.1, you're just wasting money on the NVMe drive and enclosure. Mark Baggett says, my birthday was Monday. Well, happy birthday to you, Mark. Jesse Kirk says, be kind, rewind. That is appropriate, isn't it? Absolutely. David of Coburg says, love your channel. Down under, Melbourne, Australia. Right on. Patrick said, those enclosures would be good to get data off an M.2 drive if you had a computer that wouldn't turn on anymore. Absolutely, that's true. Let's say you got a computer that it's not booting, or you have, a system that won't start, but you've got valuable data on it. Well, first of all, this is why you make backups. I don't know how many times I have to keep saying this. Apparently, I'll have to keep saying it for quite some time before this gets through to people. So if you were that stupid that you left important data on a drive without copies, well, then the price of your stupidity on the low end is going to be to buy an enclosure. You'll be forced to buy an enclosure. If the drive turned out to be damaged, whatever caused the system to not boot, damage the drive, then it's going to cost you more money to send it to data recovery. When the whole time you had that data when it was working, you could have at any time made a copy of it, and it would have cost you far less in time and money. So you can spend a little bit of time and money now to make a copy of your important data, or you can spend a lot more time and money and gamble if the data is even potentially recoverable. So I'm just sort of callous and numb about it now. I'm so sick of it. It's like, it's just pure stupidity. And if you don't care enough to back up, I don't care enough to try and help you. It's like, well, you have the power. Right now, if you don't have a backup, stop everything you're doing right this minute and go make copies of your important data. Put them somewhere. Use Microsoft OneDrive, it's free. Use Google Drive, it's free. Get a flash drive. Make copies of your important data. If you haven't done it, do it right now. It's that important. If it's not important to you to do it right now, don't you dare come in here asking me about data recovery. Nope. Because now you know better. And if you choose not to do it, that's on you. It's not my inconvenience. It's not everybody else's inconvenience. And now you're going to spend time and money and pray that you can get your stuff back at any cost. So do it now while your machine's working. Don't know how many times computers are very unpredictable. You never know how you're going to lose your data or why. And when it happens, you won't be expecting it. It's not like, oh, I'm going to upgrade Windows, I better back up my computer beforehand. No, today's Monday, today's Thursday. Did you back up? Why? Because something could happen today. You got through yesterday. Did you back up yesterday? No. Did you back up the day before? No. Did you use the computer yesterday? Yes. Did you use the computer the day before? Yes. Did you spend some time creating anything, saving something to your hard drive? Yes. Would you be upset if you lost it? Yes. But you didn't make a backup? Well, I did one last week. But what about the stuff you did between then and now? Would you be upset if you lost it? Yes. Then it's time for you to make another backup. Oh, is this rocket science? Is this complicated? It's basic. Data recovery services and enclosures to recover data. Data recovery at all, in any way, shape, or form, should never be a thing other than restoring from your backups. And honestly, if you can't be bothered, then I can't be bothered to go any further than that. You get what you give. I don't know how else to explain it. It's putting people in very difficult positions because my instinct is to want to help everybody. But there's some people, they just set themselves up for failure. When somebody smokes and you go, man, you're going to get lung cancer. You're like, yeah, I'll worry about it then. And then they get it. You're like, well, can't help you now. You know, it's too late. You've waited too long. There's nothing you can do. And so you can walk away sad and depressed that the person didn't listen and now they're suffering and you can't do anything to help them. Or you just cut that off. You just turn it off. You go, you know what? Not going to let this get me down. They knew what they were doing. They're not victims. They made their choices and they'll live with their consequences. So please, do what you want, but accept responsibility for the choices you made. Don't put that on other people. Part of my chair is falling apart. Ross Mulligan's contributed $1.99, says, I love the case badge, Carey, thank you. You're welcome, Ross. I'm glad to hear you received it and you enjoy it. Gilbert says, thanks for the recommendation on the Mugen 5. I've used it on my last 3 builds. Yeah, me too. It's a good cooler. It's a great price. Super easy to install. Yeah. I haven't met anybody who didn't like the Mugen 5 who's used it. How often would you recommend replacing the thermal paste on a laptop? By the time the thermal paste needs to be replaced, the laptop should be replaced. You're looking at a 6 to 8 year old laptop at that point, and that's when I would change the thermal compound. But I couldn't be bothered to spend that much time on a laptop that old. With as fast as technology is advancing, you know, the battery in the laptop is going to be shot at that point. And, you know, regardless if you used it on battery or not, the battery is going to die, used or not. It's going to die within 3 to, well, its life will be significantly reduced after 3 years and probably won't work at all after 5 for sure. So when you get to, you know, 6, 7, 8 years old, that's when you need to replace the laptop. So if it's time to replace the thermal compound, it's time to replace the laptop, in my opinion. There are people who have a lot of time on their hands. They don't have any money, and all they have is time. And they have nothing to lose. Like if I don't have a working laptop and somebody gave me this old 6 to 8 year old laptop because they bought a new one and I took it because it was free, but it doesn't work, so I'm going to open it up and I'm going to very carefully and gingerly take it apart and make sure you have magnifying glasses so you can see everything. And I'm going to attempt to fix it, and I'll spend as many hours as I need to, and I will source the cheapest thermal compound, or maybe I've got a friend who can give me some. That's not what I do here on this channel. As a professional working technician, I simply cannot do that to my customers. I cannot cut corners, and I cannot take too much time to fix a project. Time is money in my world. So if you're a viewer who's got nothing but time, and you're looking just to do the cheapest thing you can always do all the time, that's not a way I run a business. It's not a sustainable business. And if that's not good enough for me, I'm not recommending it to you, nor to any of my customers. We're going to get you done with a warranty, we're going to get you done quickly, and we're going to get you done right the first time. People that want to mess around, we've got nothing to lose. Those kind of people can enjoy themselves. It doesn't bother me unless they're asking me to take on their burden. Like if you voluntarily subjected yourself to that environment, please don't ask me to help you for free. You have time, I don't. So you're more than welcome to spend your time however you want to spend it. I can't, no business can do that. And there's no business in the world that can spend hours and hours and hours with a client that's not a paying client. You're not even a customer at that point. And then when you find out what labor costs and what the risks are, and you realize that buying a laptop, even a cheap one, is a better investment that's overall cheaper. It gets you a faster solution with a warranty and no negative consequences. As a repair, you could put it back together, realize the touchpad doesn't work, you have to take it back apart. When you take it back apart, you knock a cable loose, you didn't realize you knocked a cable loose, or you break a cable, you break a connector, you've got to find another connector. It's one reason you don't really see me work on laptops apart from changing hard drives and RAM. It's very easy to break little plastic clips that hold the things together. Some are even glued together. It's things like the Microsoft Surface Pro. Forget about taking that apart. You can take it apart, but forget putting it back together again. So there gets to be a point. It's funny to me. I'll tell you this. I always bought used cars, and they were always unreliable. I never knew if they were going to start. Air conditioning didn't work. Lots of stuff didn't work. And I thought I was saving money. I was patting myself on the back going, aren't I smart that I bought a $1,000 car instead of a $16,000 car? Right? It's getting me from point A to point B. Sure, the window doesn't roll down, and the stereo doesn't work, and the air conditioner doesn't work, but it does a job, and I don't have any money. So there's all this weird justification to keeping yourself living in poverty, right? And there was a point where I decided I was going to buy a new car, and it was 1995. So my first new car, I was 27, is that right? Before I had a new car. Yeah, 27 years old. And I thought, man, I got to make this car payment every month. And it's scary. That means I have to come up with, I think at the time it was $260 a month, every month, for 48 months. And this was a basic Chevy S10 4-cylinder stick shift, what we call a stripper. Just basically no power, nothing, not even a radio. It had air conditioning, and I put the radio in myself to save money. And I will tell you, I was spending more than $260 a month in fixing the old cars, because things would break all the time, and I would be stranded. The car wouldn't start, and I'd have to have friends come out, and help me to either get the car back to my home, or they would come out with some tools and help me get it repaired if it was something we could fix in the parking lot or on the side of the road. And there was sort of this weight that I didn't realize that was on my shoulders. The stress. Is it going to start? Is it going to start today? Is it going to get me there? Am I going to have a flat tire? So here I have a brand new car, brand new tires, brand new brakes, brand new clutch, brand new seats, brand new windshield, brand new paint. It's gorgeous. It smells wonderful. and I was worried about $260 a month. And I was paying the $260 was pretty easy, turns out. $260 wasn't that much money, as much as I thought it was going to be. And I knew every time I put that key in and turned it, that engine was going to start every single time. It was going to get me to where I wanted to go, get me better gas mileage than I was getting before. It looked better. It felt better to be in it. It was more comfortable. It had air conditioning. And then I realized what a fool I'd been, scraping the bottom of the barrel thinking I was saving money. I wasn't saving money. I saved money when I bought new. Now, if you're somebody who doesn't keep a car a long time, if you're trading a car in and getting a new car every 2 or 3 years, then you need to lease, or maybe you need to buy something used. And the used cars available today are a lot nicer than the used cars that were available in 1987. I'll tell you that for sure. Like, you could buy a pretty nice used car today for the same price as what I would buy in the 80s for something that didn't have anywhere near the technology or motorized options, keyless entry, power windows, et cetera, et cetera. But that being said, having a car that I didn't have to worry about how the previous owner took care of it, if they broke it in properly, were they doing burnouts in it, was the car repossessed, and if they knew it was going to be repossessed, did they damage the car, or were they hard on the car knowing that it was just going to get taken from them anyway? The car can't tell you its history, I don't know. But when you buy new and you treat it right and you do the maintenance on it right, you have every reason to believe that car is going to be reliable for a long time. It's not always the case, but in theory, that's the way it should work. And so when they're always reaching to the bottom of the barrel, it keeps them at the bottom of the barrel. And they justify it. They say, well, I can't afford to go any higher than that. You can, you have to sacrifice more. Well, I've got nothing to sacrifice. No, you do. Everybody can sacrifice. People don't want to sacrifice. I want what I want now. That mentality gets you a lot of junk that causes a lot of frustration, and it spends a lot of your time keeping it working. You get something new, it doesn't have to be top of the line, but stop racing to the bottom unless you just enjoy being frustrated all the time with technology or whatever the item is. It just doesn't make any sense in the economy we live in today in the United States. Things are just so cheap now compared to what it was in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s. Things are so inexpensive, from ceiling fans to faucets. My mother lived with dripping faucets. I don't know how much she spent on wasted water every month because she would buy the cheapest faucet she could get, and they just only lasted a very short time before they'd start to drip. And dripping wasn't enough for her to justify spending the money for a new faucet. And if she did, she'd buy the cheapest faucet she could get. And the amount of time it takes to install a cheap faucet is the exact same amount of time it takes to install a nice, moderately priced or even expensive faucet. The difference is when you buy that moderately to expensive faucet, you have a warranty, usually lifetime. Companies like Delta, Price Pfister. If it ever leaks, you call the company and they send you the part for free for the lifetime of that product in most cases. So you install it once, you pay a little bit more for the product, you install it one time, and you never deal with it for at least 10 years in the case of a faucet. You can buy a ceiling fan for $35 or you can buy a ceiling fan for $250. Which ceiling fan do you think is going to last longer? The cost to install them are exactly the same. The amount of time it takes to install them, exactly the same. So do you want to keep taking them down and replacing them every couple of years, or do you want to put one up and have it up for 10, 20 years? Me, I'm the kind of person, I want to get it done right. I don't want the most expensive things sold because I don't have that kind of money, but I'm done racing to the bottom. I was at the bottom for more than half of my life, and I'm tired of being down there, and I crawled myself out of it. And I'm nowhere near the top, but I'm also not near the bottom. Try and find getting above the bottom. It's the best advice I can give anybody for any purchase, whether it's a car, an appliance, a computer, anything. Stop racing to the bottom if it's important to you. If a computer is a novelty, you don't care if you have it or not, fine. But if it's something you count on every day and it's going to cause you frustration if it doesn't work, find a way to get up from the bottom on those purchases that mean or have that much impact on your life. And you'll find it will save you money over the course of time. and it'll save your sanity. Sid has contributed $2. He says, data that cannot be controlled is human data. Yeah, we talked a little bit about security and privacy and things like that. And yet it's the human being that's the most insecure and least private thing. People talk about each other all the time. You want to talk about privacy violations? You should hear how people you know about you talk about you. You'd be far more concerned and hurt by what they're saying about you that you have no idea. You talk about other people. Everybody does it. You don't think people are talking about you? Of course they are. That should be much more of a concern than a machine that's auto-processing your searches or whatever. It's human behavior. It doesn't make any sense. People are prioritizing the wrong things in life, in my opinion. Gary Owa 1 says, Dad always said, we're too poor to buy cheap stuff. I like that. I like your dad. That's a smart man. Wilbur Jones says, never go cheap on tires, a mattress, or running shoes. So a mattress, if you spend 8 hours a night on average sleeping, that's 1/3 of your life. Why would you buy the cheapest thing possible to spend 1/3 of your life on it? And granted, you're not supposed to have the same mattress for your whole life, but you're going to be sleeping on something every night. So why, if you're going to spend 8 hours on this thing every day, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, why would you buy the cheapest? At the very least, find something with a decent warranty from a company you're familiar with that's comfortable to you. It's got to be comfortable, but it's got to remain comfortable. What happens if it's not comfortable in 2 years? You got to buy another one? Or are you just going to stick it out and I'll show them I'm going to sleep on it anyway, and then you have back problems and got to see a chiropractor, and how did that save you money? So I'm agreeing with all of this. You guys are right on with that. Now, part of this is how I was raised. My mother would brag about how little she paid for something that she was still using today. And that's weird to me. It's just weird to me to boast how you somehow come to the conclusion that you have gamed the system by suffering yourself with some old junk somebody was getting rid of that they didn't want anymore, that you treasure because you spent so little on it. I had a conversation once when I was working at a computer building company, a computer company called Naga Systems. And the Roach Coach, the food truck, had pulled up. And we all went out for breakfast out to the parking lot. And we come into the warehouse with our food, and the manager, the foreman, he's eating his bacon and eggs. And he goes, he kind of looks up from his plate. He looks at me across the table. He goes, this is pretty good bacon and eggs for $3. And I was confused. I was like, wait. If something's good, it's good. If something's bad, it's bad. But you're saying it would be bad if it was $6, but it's good because it's $3? And he stops eating for a second, his mouth stops chewing, and he kind of looks up. And he goes, yeah, that's exactly what I mean. I don't know how to respond to that. My brain doesn't work that way. If you like it, you like it. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. Maybe what he was trying to say is he felt it was a good value. And maybe it was just a communication. Maybe what he meant was, this is a good value for $3, but it would not be a good value for $6. But to tell me it was good for $3 and it would not taste good for $6, that doesn't make sense to me. It tastes good or it doesn't, regardless of the price. So now that I hear it out loud, I think that's not what he meant. What he said wasn't what he meant. I'll bet you. Vern says, I monitored telephones in the Army, and believe me, people got big mouths. Yeah, people got to have something to do, so why not talk about somebody else? Yeah, you want to talk about privacy concerns. And unlike Google, these people who are talking about you actually know who you are and where you live. They know a lot more about you than Google does. But Google's not saying anything bad about you. So I do like that. We're too poor to buy cheap stuff. That's really good. It will keep you poor. I guess that's all I'm saying. There's a downward spiral that people find themselves in and may not even realize it, where they get to the bottom and they're like, well, I'm at the bottom. I can't get up from here. You can. And you don't have to get all the way to the top. You just have to get off the bottom. It could just be 2 steps. So you don't have to worry about falling. Just 2 steps off the bottom. That's a good place to start. And then later on, when you realize how much you're able to save, both in time and money, you can then afford and be capable of taking 2 more steps. And then hopefully, you'll find yourself in this middle position. Now, I think most people idolize this idea of being at the top, which is money's not an object, you get what you get. People do everything for you, and you have anything you want. But then things lose value, because when, in my opinion, when you could just as easily buy a Matchbox car versus a actual car, because either way it doesn't make a dip in how much money you have. Like, you've got so much money, what difference does it make? I don't notice it if I buy a, I'm not saying that's how it is, but I'm saying people that have just huge amounts of money, guys, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Jeff Bezos. To Jeff Bezos, a Matchbox car and a real car don't make a dent in his checkbook. So there's no real sense of value. When you earn everything, when you're, well, not that Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates didn't earn what they have, but they've exceeded the wealth of the common man by, 10,000 times or whatever it is. So they can have anything they want anytime they want it, and then everything sort of has the same value. A house has the same value as a car, has the same value as a toy. It's all basically free. You get to a point where when you have so much money, nothing has any value anymore. So I feel bad for people like that. And I also feel bad for people who use excuses to explain why they can't have a nice thing. Certainly in your life, there's one thing you can splurge on. And when you start with that one thing, you might realize how much better it makes your life. And you might realize that it actually is saving you money. And then you might realize you could splurge on one other thing. And then over time, you end up having a much less stressful and less expensive lifestyle, because you're not using being poor or being broke as the excuse to continue to suffer with equipment that's unreliable or doesn't have all the features. But these are choices that people are making. And a lot of people say, well, you don't know what it's like because it's not a choice. I don't have a choice. You do have a choice. You absolutely do have a choice. You can pull yourself out of wherever you are. If you're waiting for somebody to come and get you and pull you out, it's probably not going to happen. You have to claw your way out. You've got to want it bad enough that you're willing to crawl and claw out of it. And it just takes perseverance and patience and determination. And anybody who wants to do it can. But what I can't do is I can't fix what's up in here that's causing that mental block. People fight discrimination. People fight all different kinds of obstacles that get in your path. But it doesn't stop those who are determined. That's all I have to say about that. Doesn't mean it's going to happen right away. You might struggle with it for years, but you never quit, and you try different paths until you get to where you want to be, or out of where you are into someplace a little tiny bit better. Start with small achievable goals, and then set new ones after you've achieved those. And then before you know it, when you look back, you'll see just how far you've come. But nobody can make you want to do it. That's something you have to decide for yourself. So anyway, it gets a little bit to the philosophy of what I do. And again, it's because when I was growing up in the 80s, I did not think that I was in a poor family. I didn't feel like we were in poverty. Now that I'm able to make choices differently than my parents made, that I'm able to spend money on things that are important to me that were not important to my parents, I feel like, looking back on it, we lived in extreme poverty. Extreme poverty. Ignorance is bliss. That was normal to me. That was life. I didn't have any basis for any other kind of life. So just dealt with it, you know. Certainly there were other families that appeared to be poorer than us, and that's always going to be the case. There's always going to be a richer family and a poorer family. And I don't feel like I suffered as a kid. I don't feel like, certainly there were things I wanted for the holidays that I didn't get because my parents couldn't afford to get. I wanted a big Millennium Falcon Star Wars toy. Never got it. Parents couldn't afford $50 for a Star Wars toy. It wasn't going to happen. But I was able to get a paper route, and I was able to earn my own money at 10 years old, and I was able to use that money for anything I wanted. I wanted a stereo, I bought a stereo. Put it on layaway, paid 10 or 20 bucks at a time until it was paid for. And this is back in the 1970s. Had a paper route here in Arizona in the early 1980s, 80, 81, 82. Dealt with bullies constantly, both on the paper route and at school. I couldn't get away from it. And you just keep persevering. And even though when you're in the eye of the storm, you feel like it's never going to pass, it passes. And then you're still standing after it's over, and you look around, and all those people that harassed you, they just vanished. They're gone. I couldn't even tell you their names anymore. I don't know if they lived or died or moved or what. I had no idea what happened to any of them. Don't care. Too focused on what I'm doing. And it's important to me to do things the way I want to do them. Doesn't mean it's the right way. It's my way. And that's what attracts me to doing computer repairs. There's often several different techniques or paths that you can take to get a problem resolved. Some may take longer than others, but it's important to me that I did it my way. And if there's only one way to solve a problem, I'm not interested in that, because you can train a monkey to do that. I like the freedom of thought and creative thought and logical thought to do things that make sense to me. They don't have to make sense to anybody else. And that has not gotten me rich, clearly. But I do believe it has made me successful in that I have the freedom to make those choices where a lot of people don't. And if you ask me, would I rather have more money or would I rather have freedom of choices? I'll take freedom of choices over money every day of the week. But that's just me. That's just the way, between how I was raised and how I was brought up and the circumstances with which that happened to where I am now. I wouldn't change anything because I have a great sense of appreciation for what I have. I've earned everything. Nothing was given to me. And because of that, I take very good care of things, because if I buy a new car and I start spinning out and doing donuts and racing it, I'm going to ruin that car. It's just going to get ruined. Then I'm going to have to buy another one. And I don't have that kind of money. I can't afford to do that. So if I invest $30,000 in a car, I'm going to wash it, and I'm going to make sure the oil gets changed. I'm going to make sure all the maintenance gets done, because where else am I going to come up with another $30,000? I want that car to last as long as reasonably possible. That 1999 Blazer I had for 20 years. So if I live to be 80, that means 25% of my life I will have had that Chevy Blazer. I bought it brand new, and I put 235,000 miles on it over the course of 20 years. I'd say the car didn't owe me anything. I really got my money's worth out of it. But it got to a point those last 4 years where it was nothing but headaches and nightmares. I was right back to sort of being in that used car era in the 80s where, is it going to start? Is it going to reliably take me where I want to go? What's that weird sound? What's that squeak? What's that vibration? What's that rattle? And it just gives anxiety to, how much longer is this car going to last? And to a certain point where, again, it becomes cheaper to buy something else. So anyway, that's just my philosophy on that. All right, I don't know what else this needs updates. 2 updates failed. What does that mean? Let's check for updates again. Where am I from? I'm from Detroit, Michigan. Did you ever consider the military? Yes. So again, if anybody has any other technical questions, certainly can get back on track to the tech stuff. I'd be happy to do my best to provide answers. Did working for a company building computers make you appreciate what you are doing now? Well, working for a company building computers taught me why there are processes and procedures. It taught me about accountability, liability, and responsibility. It taught me about customer expectations, consequences about meeting those expectations. It taught me about working together with others to accomplish a single goal. And so I could not have successfully run my own business without all of that knowledge. That was all stuff I would have had to have figured out, and my business probably would not have survived that educational curve, to be honest. So I was able to take, because remember, I'm somebody who always wants to know why. Don't just tell me what to do. I want to know why I'm doing it. And there were some things in a corporate environment that didn't make any sense to me, that they were done because that's how we do it. And there was no other excuse. So I cut all the fat. I trimmed all the fat and the processes and did only what actually mattered when I started my business. And I put down processes and procedures in place to ensure what my theory was these are the proper processes and policies that have to be in place. And all these other ones the corporation uses, that doesn't affect me because I'm not that large. And also some of these are just power plays from people in power wanting to control others. So I don't have to, my logic was I don't have to do that. And there were some policies and procedures I've changed. Somebody would say, is my computer ready? I go, yeah, how much is it? It's $120. Well, I only have 100. Can I pick up the computer for $100 and I'll pay you the 20 later? See, the problem is I need my computer to do my job, and I need my job to get the money to pay you. So I can't pay you unless I can do my work. So if you let me come and pick it up for $100, I promise you I'll pay you the remainder as soon as I can pay it. I'm not one of those people who doesn't pay. I'm not one of those people. I'm just not that guy. Well, everybody who ever did that to me, and there were 2 people, neither one of them ever paid. So my logic at the time was, would Best Buy let somebody do that? No. So I'm going to do it because Best Buy won't. I will. Then when both times I did it, neither customer paid me. Then I said, well, now I know why Best Buy has this policy. And I don't allow that anymore. In both cases, I wrote the customers and said, you have no warranty. Because you've not paid your invoice in full, do not come back here. Do not call with any questions. Never. Also, there were a couple other friends of mine in business, and I said, these businesses will not accept you either. So everybody in my circle knows that you didn't pay, and you have no warranty, and you have no support. Have a nice life. I never heard from those people again, and my business is stronger because of it. Some customers will take your business down if you allow them to. You know, whose business is it? Is it your business or is it your customer's business? At the end of the day, you're the one responsible. Your customers are not. They're responsible in their world. You're responsible in yours. You dictate how you're going to run you don't let your customers tell you how to run your business. This idea that the customer is always right is the most preposterous and absurd attitude I've ever heard in my life. If a customer is reasonable, there's no reason to not be reasonable and negotiable back with the customer. If the customer is stubborn, entitled, and narcissistic, and they're going to tell you how you're going to run your business and what you should be charging and how they should be allowed to pay, no. There's no business in the world that is a Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000 corporation that operates in that manner. You just can't achieve that level of success. If anything, you will go out of business. There's such a thing as just being too nice of a person. And when you are, there are too many people in the world that don't give a rat's behind how much you will suffer to their benefit. If you consent to it, they're fine with it. If you say, for example, customer says, what do I owe you? And you go, well, I don't know, whatever you think it's worth. The guy will give you $20. You're like, hold on a minute. This is what you're thinking. I know what others charge. I know what Best Buy Geek Squad charges. I know what the guy down the street charges. They're all over $100. And when I said, pay me what you think it's worth, I was thinking on the low end, you'd be paying me like $60. This is an insult. You might as well spit in my face. Well, that's what you asked for. The customer said, what do I owe you? You said, what do you think it's worth? They gave you $20. So shut up. Don't be bitter and resentful about it. That's what you asked for. If you don't have the guts to put your foot down and go, this job is $125 or $100, if the customer says, well, look, I think that's a bit much, then you can say, well, what do you think it's worth? Customers say $20. Then you can laugh and go, you call around and show me anybody does that for $20. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll bring it down to, let's say, $90. You can negotiate, nothing wrong with that. But you not negotiating and allowing the customer to set the price is going to put you out of business so fast you won't even know what hit you. And then you'll sit there and say, well, poor me. Well, it's not poor you. Those were your decisions. You did that to yourself. So don't give the customer that much power. And customers who don't want to pay what you're charging, those aren't customers you want. It's pretty obvious, right? You think I'm going to go to a fancy restaurant and say, I'm not paying more than $20 for my meal? Get out of here. We don't want you here. We have people lining up out the door that are paying $200 for a meal. Well, I don't have $200. That's crazy money. No, it isn't. All those people don't think it is. So you need to go. Come back when you can afford it. Go home and go to the grocery store. Go buy yourself, see how far that $20 will get you at the grocery store for what we're serving here. And you can go cook it at home. We don't care. We honestly don't care, but we're not helping you. No high-end restaurant or any restaurant is going to let you dictate how much you're going to pay. You don't get to walk in McDonald's and go, well, I think that Whopper is worth $2. No. The customer is not always right. Most of the time, the customers are completely wrong and delusional in many cases. But there are good customers who appreciate the value of what you offer them. And there are good customers who don't take advantage and have gratitude for the value and the quality of the services you provide. Those are the ones that you bend over backwards for. When there is a problem, those are the ones worth negotiating with because it means more future money. And that's how you maintain a business. It's really that simple. You don't try and please the customer who doesn't want to pay anything. You want to cut that customer loose as quickly as possible. Every minute you spend is a minute less of income that you could be earning with another customer who's actually going to pay you. You cut them loose as soon as possible and write off your losses before you're writing off more losses. And you block their number on your phone, do whatever you have to so that you don't communicate with them anymore because they will bleed you dry if you allow it. Thankfully, most customers are not that way unless you're advertising in a place like Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, a place where people are at the bottom looking to stay at the bottom, and they want to keep you down with them at the bottom. Everything that costs you, they profit from. So which one of you is running the business? Thunderbolt controller driver. Chris Evans contributed 10 pounds. Thank you, Chris. Good, that installed correctly that time. We'll check updates one more time. You know, with that Thunderbolt driver updated, I'm just curious if it changes these test results at all. I'm going to run the test on this one more time since the driver's been updated. I don't think it's going to, but I could be wrong. It's happened before. Sometimes a customer will contact you. The one I seem to get a lot are people that want me to tutor them on how to use a computer. And what I try to explain is that you don't ask a mechanic to teach you how to drive. That's a different, you're asking the wrong person. If you have a problem with your car, you go to the mechanic. If you want to learn how to drive, you go to a driving instructor. If you need to learn how to drive a stick, don't ask your mechanic to teach you how to drive a stick. He's not going to do it. Chances are he's not going to do it. Doesn't have time. So sometimes people, they confuse having a computer problem versus not knowing how to do something. And if it's something simple, of course, I'll answer it. But in most cases, a person will want to know, well, how do I back up a computer, let's say? Well, do you understand file and folder structure? Or what's that? Do you understand files and extensions? Well, what's that? See, you can't come in and decide what you want to learn. You have to start from the beginning, get a book on Amazon or take a class, and let the instructor take you through the process of building your knowledge with a solid foundation, moving up to understanding how files and folders work, what file extensions are, and then you'll understand better how to back up your data once you understand how the process entirely works. You don't get to pick what you want to learn when you don't know what you don't know. That's what a tutor or a teacher or a book is for. It's to guide you through the proper steps for you to achieve that knowledge that you want. You have to build up to it. You can't just jump to that and then not understand all. You can't run until you learn how to walk. You understand? And it's unfortunate that tutoring, as we know it, it's very much a one-on-one thing, and it's very inefficient. So for a while I was teaching at the college where I could bring up to 30 students, and I wouldn't go more than 30 because, honestly, even more than 20, each student doesn't get enough individual time. So when the college had put more than 20, and I only did that for one semester, I told them never do that again. Split that into 2 classes of 15. But the college, meant more profit for them. But it was unfortunate for those students in that class. But at least I could teach multiple people at the same time and then clarify any miscommunication or misconception that anybody would ask that somebody else might have also misunderstood but didn't have the guts to ask in a classroom environment. But I felt that that was a better use by helping, let's say, 15 or 20 people at a time than doing one at a time. It's not, certainly no way you're going to make a lot of money. People aren't going to pay you $100 an hour for tutoring, and tutoring is very slow. And if you let the customer dictate to you what they want to learn, they will ask you 800 questions in a completely random order that doesn't build on their knowledge, and then they will forget the answers you gave them. They'll forget the answer to question 75, and then they will ask you the same question again over and over and over because they don't understand the foundation and how that makes any sense. It's just random information to somebody not properly taught. And so the great thing about YouTube and the internet is you can really self-educate using Google and using YouTube. You can use those search engines to find online courses to teach you just about anything on any topic at numerous levels from novice, intermediate to expert. And so what I do is I build, repair, and upgrade computers, and I can teach anybody how to do that. It's very simple. But if you want to know how do I do this feature in Windows 10, I'm not that guy. There are people that are Windows 10 experts. They author books on Windows 10. They have YouTube channels that go through all bells, whistles, and features in Windows 10. The only time we really get into tutoring here on this channel is if I bring a guest on to talk about their product. So if we bring on a Cronus, I'll ask a Cronus to demonstrate how to use a specific feature. That's the only time I get into any sort of tutoring, and it's not me doing it. It's the representative of the company explaining how to use their product. So I like to make that distinction in order to prevent, you can imagine the number of emails and Facebook stuff I get every day. And a lot of it, I'm like, I just don't do that. It's not what I do. And people just, they don't like to hear no. They don't like to be turned away. But people have to be self-sufficient. You have to realize that for you to gain the knowledge, you've got to go to the right source. And for that knowledge, I'm not the right source. I just don't have time for it. It's not my specialty. The numbers are pretty much the same. I'm looking at 760 and 801. So I don't think that driver made much of a difference, but it works. Wants to do a quick virus scan, I'll let it run. James Zender has contributed $20 and says, good logic. Thanks, James. Thanks for your contribution and for supporting the channel. So a friend of mine said, he said, you like working on engines? I go, yeah, well, I went to school to be an automotive mechanic. That's what I initially, before computers took off. And he says, well, I'm in Tennessee and I'm rebuilding jet ski motors, and there's like nobody out here that does it, and it pays really good money. And these people who can afford jet skis and boats, they have money. So you get paid. And it pays well. And I know you and I work well together. And I just want you to know that if your life should suddenly I don't know, if you wanted to start all over again, let's say YouTube wasn't paying anymore, computer repair had died, maybe I'm, gonna be single again, I'm gonna lose everything, I still wouldn't be poor. You understand? Like, I could still load up my car, drive to Tennessee, and start a whole new life fixing motors, and then kick myself wondering why I didn't do it sooner, because I don't deal with people questioning me, customers are paying and nobody's got excuses on why they can't afford to pay. These are people that own jet skis and boats. They obviously have additional income in order to buy these toys. And apparently there's few people in the industry that do this kind of work in the area in Tennessee that he lives. And that makes me feel wonderful. First of all, it's flattering that my friend made that offer to me. Second of all, there's this sort of confidence that I have that no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay, because I have a natural interest in doing that kind of work. I always have. It's a question if you want to go for the money. Like, I much prefer to work with clean hands, although everybody wears gloves these days on motor work. But nonetheless, there's a great sense of confidence that if I had to start all over, that option exists, where I'm walking into a business that, he's got word of mouth right now. He's got a few engines that he can do himself. But with the two of us working together, first, he's a friend I've known for 30 years. It'd be good to hang out together. Second, change of environment, get out of Phoenix, get into where it's green, there's water everywhere. What a concept. And do a job that could potentially pay me more money than I've been making my whole life. Wow, that's a great anxiety reliever in worrying about what work might or might not come in tomorrow, right? That's always an issue when you're self-employed. And to know that there's another completely unrelated thing I can do in a completely unrelated place, it shows the power of attitude. The ability to pick up and move and do something completely different is, it's self-assuring to know that in a worst case scenario, if I had no other choice, that's something easy. Now, like anybody else, I could also just go and send applications out or try and start another business and do something else entirely. But that would be the easiest thing. Jump in the car, friend will let me stay with him until I can earn enough money to get my own place. And he'll know how much money I'm earning because we'll be working together. I can't tell you what that feels like. It's an amazing feeling of self-assurance that no matter what, I'm going to be okay. And people who don't want to do anything, people that lack ambition, and they use excuses for it, I used to be that person. So that's why you don't see a whole lot of sympathy for me with people saying I can't, or those opportunities don't exist for me. Yeah, they don't exist for you because you have a bad attitude. They didn't exist for me either until I changed my attitude. Michael Walpole's contributed $2.99. Jason Wyrick has contributed $2.01. And Rick Hubbard's contributed £5. He says, just for the heck of it. Right on. Well, thanks, you guys. Again, thanks for supporting the channel. Okay, Windows 10 seems happy. We'll check for updates one more time. I was just installing all the Dell updates. Now I'm going to check for Windows updates. I mostly just have this laptop sitting on a shelf in the back room. It's there as sort of an emergency backup, or when I'm traveling and I want to live stream when I'm traveling, and I haven't needed it yet. So looking forward, one of the reasons I'm looking forward to going to Michigan is I get the chance to put that to work, see how it's going to work in the real world. Is it worth it to buy a different cable for the Sabrent? I would suggest that if you order the Sabrent, use the cable that comes with it. And if you're not happy with it either because of its length or the adapter, then buy the cable you need and the length you need. But how do you know if you need it or not until after you determine whether or not the one that's included meets your needs? So you have to have a point of reference. You can't use my point of reference. They're obviously not selling the device with a cable that doesn't work. That doesn't behoove them. That's not in their best interest. Well, that's already done. We'll restart. I think I need another Coke. We'll do a few more questions, and we're going to wrap up today's stream. And I'm not being good today with the Coke. I should really just stop at one. But I've been good for a week, which is really nothing to brag about, to be honest. I should be good for a month, but that's all right. Doesn't have to be extremes. We don't have to do all or nothing. We don't have to go cold turkey. As long as I'm reducing it down and moving in the right direction, and just slowly wean down on less and less of it. So there'll be days where you'll see me drink more of it. There'll be days when you don't see me drink it at all. And that's okay. Stealth Mode says, I'm self-employed, much the same as Carey. I was formerly a professional technician for Prudential and Aetna and a few other companies. See, those are the best techs. The best techs are people, and in fact, I think the best employees, the best self-employed people used to be employees in their industry where they dealt in a corporate environment, both the politics in dealing with the other employees, the corporate politics with policies and procedures, the work that has to be done, answering to both your customers and your bosses. And then when you strike out on your own after a couple of years, I've got a client who's a lawyer, and he's very wealthy, and his son has never had to want for anything in his life. He just tells Dad, I want a Porsche Panamera, and Dad gets him a Porsche Panamera. And when his son got a legal degree, which, Dad paid for, came to work with his father at the legal firm and drove everybody who had to work with him crazy, because he would get away with things because he was the boss's son that nobody else could get away with. And nobody could say anything for fear that it could cost them their job. And finally, even the boss had enough of his son and said, you're out of here. And the son can't get it through his head. And the reason he can't get it through his head that he's doing something wrong, like he's completely oblivious to how he treats people, to how he dismisses people, and how he thinks he knows everything. And it really puts everybody off around him. He's a good person. He's a super nice guy. The problem is he's trying too hard to impress people. And he doesn't know what it's like to not be the boss's son. He, in my opinion, needs to go work at any law firm in the world other than his father's, okay? Any other one. Come in on the entry level like everybody else, work there at least 2 years. Then, after he's been in a real job where he's not related to anybody, that he's got to prove himself through his actual work, and he has to get along with the employees if he wants to move up in that company, then when he comes to work for his father, he will have a sense of appreciation for the other employees that work there, because he'll then be able to relate to them. He can't relate to them as an employee. He doesn't know what it's like to be an employee. He's never been an employee ever, other than from his father. And so he doesn't have the same pressures, and he doesn't have the same consequences to his actions that everybody else has. Things that are more tolerant when it's him. He gets away with things other people won't get away with. And so when the father had enough of it and said, get out of here, the kid can't get it into his head that there's anything other than his father being unreasonable. Like, he can't get it in his head. It's what he's doing. It can't be me. And I think it's a very healthy thing to work in an industry, in a corporate environment for a minimum of 2 years. Like, if you want to be a tech, go work at Best Buy or Office Max, or go work as desktop support for a large corporation for 2 years. And then decide, is this something you want to be self-employed at? And if so, you'll be much better at your job, not only on running the business, but in how you talk to your customers and how you do your work, and you understand the value of time, and you can appreciate the fact that you don't deal with the politics and the drama and policies and procedures of a large corporation, that you can do things that fit your company, that you decide. Nobody else is making those decisions but you. But to come at it without any real world experience, to just go, I fixed my computer and I fixed my friend's computer, so I'm just going to open up my own shop and fix computers for people, those are the worst techs. They are the worst. And there's always exceptions. There's always going to be somebody who, despite that, is still really, really good. It's not normal. In most cases, these guys are just, and gals, they're terrible technicians. They're just, in my opinion, they just don't have the foundation that somebody else would have that has that experience before, striking it up on their own. But that's my take on it. Yeah, with this cable on this drive, I like that. For me, that makes me happy. But that cable's not going to fit on most customer computers that come in here for repair. That'll work on new builds I do, but not on repairs. And so I will always use the Sabrent cable, or I'll keep it, because the majority of the time we'll probably have to use that cable. And even then, it's going to run, half the speed, but it'll still be faster than pretty much every other solid state or other storage drive that I have. I'm going to go back to Windows Update one more time and make sure we've got all the updates installed, and then I'm going to turn that off. I'm not reading BH Ringer's comment out loud, but that's hilarious. What is the best Wi-Fi card for a computer? It depends on what router you've got. You should get whatever Wi-Fi card maximizes your router. So if you've got a cheap router, it won't do you any good to buy an expensive Wi-Fi card. All right, I'm going to shut this down. Man, I'm so happy with this ladder. It's so fast. It's relatively quiet. Sometimes the fan will spin up when it's really working. Battery life on it's fantastic. I can't wait to start using it. Like, for work, all I'm doing is updating it and getting it ready for work. It hasn't done any work yet. John Paul Bacon says, it's been a good stream today so far. Thanks, John. Sid says, I've been building and upgrading computers for years. I even shadowed a tech, but I can't work because my rent would go up. Yeah, I mean, I really don't know how to talk to people with that attitude. It's sort of like, I can't possibly earn more money because then I'd have to pay more taxes. But you'd be earning more money. So, I don't know. I met people who say, there's no point in me getting off of unemployment because the jobs I'm being offered, when you factor in the cost of going back and forth to work and all the expense that entails, I'm right back where I started from, and I don't have to work. Yeah, but you've got no opportunity for advancement collecting unemployment. At least if you start somewhere, you can work your way up. You're only looking at, oh, you know, this is what they're going to pay me to start, and that's not enough, so I'd rather just stay where I am. I can't deal with people with that attitude. I just can't. You're stuck where you're stuck because you make decisions like that. You'll never move up. You'll always just stay right there until you change that attitude. And I don't care. I'm not the one who has to live like that. You want to live like that? That's your choice, not mine. I've already done that. Been there, done that, had enough of it. I was sent something, a viewer sent me something I've got to show you. I don't know if this is a hint. These are caffeinated Jelly Belly jelly beans. Assorted flavors. When you need a burst of energy, eat a package of jelly beans. They are energizing jelly beans that contain caffeine. 50 milligrams, 50 milligrams of caffeine if you eat the whole bag. It's not really much, is it? Doesn't coffee have like 200 milligrams of caffeine? Ew, they're sweet. Gerald Guston has contributed $2. Thank you, Gerald. God, these are sweet. Let's look at the nutrition facts. This will make you cringe. 80 milligrams of sodium, 25 grams of carbs, 19 grams of sugars. Insulin. Oh, wait, you're supposed to actually do something after you eat these. Like sports. I don't think these are really for people like me. I need to sit in my chair, but I need energy for that. They're too sweet. Who eats this? You'd have to eat a whole bag just to get 50 milligrams? I think those 5-hour energies are over 200 milligrams and just a little shot. I don't think it's anywhere. In fact, there's 0 sugar in those. Protein, 0. Energize with 1 pack 30 minutes before activity. Use additional beans as necessary during activity to sustain energy level. Replenish with 1 pack after activity. Always consume with water. This looks like water. Caffeine in that too. The number 1 ingredient, cane sugar, followed by tapioca syrup. Beeswax, carnauba wax. Isn't that what you wax your car with? Carnauba wax? Riboflavin, niacinamide, thiamine hydrochloride, but natural flavors. Yeah. Thanks for that, person who sent that. Do I sound ungrateful? Let's see if I'm bouncing off the walls in a half an hour. Also good to wax a surfboard with. At least you wax your insides. Yeah, they'll be nice and shiny. All right, guys, we're at 3 hours right now, so I think I'll go ahead and wrap up the video. I don't see any other questions coming in, so appreciate you guys joining me today for the shootout. That'll be edited down, by the way. This is just kind of hanging out afterwards because I had some time. I got an early start today as opposed to yesterday. And a quick shout out to everybody who's contributed today. Working backwards from the most recent. Gerald Guston, Michael Walpole, Jason Wyrick, Rick Hubbard, James Zender, Chris Evans, Sid, The Sims Channel, Ross Mulligan, Miguel Ramirez. He wanted me to know that Best Buy has the Western Digital Blue 250 gig solid state drive for $34.99 as part of their deal of the day. That's a good price. Scott Hallinan, he said, hey, Uncle Carey, here's some money for the channel. I'm loving what I see and learning so much. Thank you, Scott. Carl J. Palmer, Jr., Johnny Craig, OG Gaming, who said, thanks, I ordered that demagnetizer. Boy, that makes your life a whole lot easier. Thanks again. I think it means it makes your life easier. That's what I said. It makes your life easier. It makes my life easier. That's what I said. It makes your life easier. They're cheap. Andrew Dorset, Thomas M., Z Media, William Lundy, Colin Hunt, David Anderson, Dreamtide024, Zarian Art, Bill Carter, and the first contribution today from Tan Van Balen. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. I do appreciate that very much. Should you worry about the type of memory used for a solid state drive? That's up to you to decide. The type of memory affects its cost and its performance, its longevity. For most people, they usually just get what's the cheapest for the capacity that they desire or require. Is doing forum tech support a good prerequisite for starting your own computer tech business? No. Anytime you're doing something on a computer, it's virtual. Anything you're doing in reality is reality, and they're two completely unrelated different things. Virtual has no feeling. Virtual has no contact, no physical contact, no eye-to-eye contact. Virtual is numb. Virtual has no feelings. You need to have real-world experience if you want to start a real-world business. And you need virtual world experience if you want to start a virtual world business. They don't interchange. There's completely different procedures and protocols and policies required. And, you know, when you're dealing with somebody and you have their computer and they don't pay you, you can keep their computer. But when you deal with somebody online, I hope you get them to pay up front. Because if they decide not to pay you, there's nothing you can do about it. So there's all, and that's one example, just one example off the top of my head. I could probably think of many more where the difference is how people communicate online is different than how people communicate face to face. Not saying it's better or worse, it's different. And if you're used to communicating in a virtual world, people in the real world who do not communicate that way are not going to take to you. They're going to find you to not be a very personable person. People are generally ruder and more blunt and abrupt online than they are in person. Things online take more time. People in the real world don't have time. They want it fixed now, they want it fixed cheap, and they want it fixed right the first time. So there's lots and lots of differences, and the virtual world does not equate to any real world experience in any aspect. Flying a flight simulator is nothing at all like flying a real plane. There's nothing, it's absolutely nothing about it. You don't have any sensation of gravity or momentum. You have no real fear over altitude. It's numb. If you go through life high on painkillers, and that's your idea of a good time, and that's how you want to live every day of your life until you die, then you're not really alive. You're just you're just living virtually. I feel bad for people like that. And I'm not saying you can't live at all virtually, but I do think you have to strike a balance. It shouldn't be lopsided one way or the other. Balance and moderation in all things. Robert wants to know, if I'm thinking about buying a motherboard that has built-in wireless, does it need to be the same manufacturer as my router? No, no. If you have ever gone to use free Wi-Fi at a hotel or a Starbucks, do you know what kind of router they have? Have you ever not been able to connect because you didn't have the right brand? Never. If you weren't able to connect, it had nothing to do with the brand of Wi-Fi you had. So that doesn't apply in that scenario. Why would it apply in your home? There's wireless standards, 802.11, and then of course there's letter designations after that, A, G, N, AC, AX. You want to make sure, if you want the best distance, range, and speed, that you have the best Wi-Fi card that matches that Wi-Fi router. If you have a cheap Wi-Fi router, it's only going to go as fast as the router. And if you have a expensive router and a cheap Wi-Fi card, it's only going to go as fast as the card. Past Me has contributed €5. He says, thank you for your great work. Another 5 via PayPal. Hey, thank you, Past Me. I appreciate that very much. Carey, what's your most important tech lesson you ever learned? The most important tech lesson is stop trying to impress people with how smart you are. Stop it. Stop it. It's a difficult thing to get the mental state of confidence that you no longer have to worry about impressing people, where you just have a take it or leave it attitude. You go, look, I don't need to prove myself to anybody anymore. I've been doing this for a long enough period of time. And I always will get to a solution, even if it means I have to pay somebody else to do it. Because once I take on the job, I see that job through, no matter what it is. I'll give you an example. I took on a big wiring job that I should not have taken on. A company was renovating a two-story building, and they wanted all the networking replaced while they had all the walls down, which is that's a dream job for a cabler, right? If you can get in there before the walls go up, that's easy. The problem was they needed about 200 drops. Now, a drop is a line. You need 200 lines, 200 wires. And they all have to go to one location. In other words, they all terminate in one room. That's where the server and the switch and the router and all that's going to go in there. So all 200 wires have to come down into this room, and they all have to be routed around electrical lines because you don't want any electrical line interference. You've got to use a cable certified by the city, because if you wire it with the wrong cable and the inspector comes in and says this isn't the right cable, you get to do it again at your own expense. So initially when I thought about it, I walked through the empty building and I just couldn't quite visualize to the depth that what they were about to do. So I thought it was probably something I shouldn't take on myself. I would need some help. And the people I've had help me in the past just aren't reliable, or they don't do the quality work, or they don't work fast enough. So I went to a person I know that does cabling, or I know of. It was a friend of a friend. And I said, I would like you to come with me to this building, and I would like you to quote me what you would charge to wire this building. And remember, this guy has a wiring company. That's all he does. They do phones and networks. And he gave me a price. And what I did is I added 25%. It was 20% or 25% onto his price. And I made my invoice that more or less duplicated what his invoice said, you know, this many feet of cable, this much a foot. Okay, same thing, but 25% more. This much labor, this many hours, 25% more. Gave it to the client approved it. So then I hired the guy to work under the condition that I inspect all work so that at the end of the day, I'm still held accountable. It's got to be done to my standard. They did that job in 3 days. They were in and out, 200 runs, boom, done. And my goal was to go in every day. Well, I went in after day 1. I looked at what they did and I liked it. Then I went in at like day 5 and they had been done for 2 days. And I just saw a web of cables running everywhere, no conduit. I was like, well, the conduit wasn't on the invoice and I didn't think about putting it on. And technically it's not wrong. And it's all going to be covered up. Nobody's going to see it. And then the other thing they did, they tied some cables together, they like put a loop on them. And I thought, man, if we ever have to pull cable through the wall, I'll never be able to do it because of the way they did that. But that won't be my problem. And technically that wasn't on the invoice, but that's not how I would have done it. And it's already done and it all works. I tested some ends, everything. I didn't test all of them. I just randomly tested pairs, not pairs, but I did a continuity test to make sure that the cabling was good. It matched the right style of cabling, met all the networking requirements. And for all intents and purposes, they did a good job. They did exactly what the invoice said. If I would have done the job, once I realized we don't have conduit, there was no pre-existing conduit to use, it would have added quite a bit of money onto the cost. It would have, because we'd have to bring in somebody to perhaps hang a conduit. You'd have to like bring hooks in from the ceiling and hang it correctly. And then you've got to deal with, again, permitting and make sure you're not interfering with the sprinkler system. Obviously, you still have to avoid electrical lines. You can go over electrical lines, but you can't go alongside of them because it'll create interference and it'll affect the network performance severely. And it's very difficult to diagnose that. Company didn't know any better, right? All they knew was we needed cables run, you know, the construction workers, you know, all the drywall goes up, nobody sees nothing and everything works, and they were happy. And it was done, and it was done in 3 days. It was a project I thought would take me 2 weeks. It was done in 3 days. And as far as I know to this day, it still works, never needed any. I mean, I don't know if it needed any repairs, but I never heard back. So, you know, you could make a business just being a middleman. But at the end of the day, it just wasn't up to my quality, and I never used that guy's business ever to run another cable again. So, yeah, anyway, so that's one experience. So overall, I'd say the one thing that I've learned to do, or for me that's made my life easier, is stop trying to impress people. It doesn't really matter what people think. There are people who will value you, and there are people who won't value you. And when you try too hard, you're annoying. You don't even realize how annoying you are. And you've seen it, you'll notice it when somebody else does it. When somebody's trying too hard to impress a girl, you're like, oh my gosh, stop, just be yourself. Well, just be yourself. And if people don't like you, that's their problem. That's not your problem. You have a problem with me? Remind me again which one of us has a problem. You have a problem with me. That's your problem. That's not my problem. And the world's a big place. We don't need to be in the same space. I'll go my way, you go yours. You focus on the people who appreciate you for who you are. Somebody doesn't like you because there's a thing about you they don't like, and this person over here loves you because of that thing the other person hates. Who's right and who's wrong? Just be yourself. The people who appreciate you are going to appreciate you. But if you try too hard, people who might otherwise appreciate you are going to be like, seems like a good kid, but he needs to take it down a notch, you know? So I think that's the most important lesson. Just be yourself. And be professional. Treat people the way you want to be treated. And if that's not good enough for those people, that's those people's problem. Now, if you're running into where you've got more people who have a problem than people who don't, that might be on you to change something. But otherwise, it's just human nature. Some people just aren't going to like you no matter what you do. And who cares? Why does their opinion matter? Who are they? Just focus on the people who appreciate and value what you bring. And anybody who doesn't, ignore them like they don't exist. Gary says, that comes with maturity, I think. Well, the sooner you can get to maturity, the better, as far as I'm concerned. The sooner you reach maturity, the sooner you'll be successful. The sooner you get yourself on the road, the sooner you'll reach your destination. Are there any plans for the future? Lots of plans. Yes, we've got other builds coming up, other giveaways coming up, potentially a travel to Denver. There'll be the convention called TechCon Unplugged in Grand Rapids, Michigan, that I'll be attending. There'll be a meet and greet there. That's September 20th through the 22nd at Grand Rapids, Michigan. That's for people running business or wanting to start your own business or wanting to expand the business you have now in computer repair, and you want to talk to others who are in the industry and make new contacts and such. You'd be surprised how people that you meet in these conventions, how they can come back to help you in your business. Could be months or years later. You make these contacts. Sometimes just friendships. You meet somebody, you just click with them, and sometimes that in and of itself makes it worth attending. Then, of course, after that, Cronus has a cybersecurity conference in Miami. I'll be going out to Miami for that again in October. I was thinking about doing a meet and greet in Phoenix. What I've learned is that Harkins movie theaters will rent out the theater for $100 an hour. And what I'm thinking is I could rent the theater someday for 3 hours, invite people during this 3-hour period to come in. On the movie theater screen, we can be projecting a video made just for attendees, an exclusive video just for attendees that they can watch while they're there. Happy to answer questions, shake hands, sign autographs. I don't know why anybody wants an autograph, but if that's what they want, I'll give it to them. And I would just need enough people attending where it's not costing me any money. So there have to be some kind of a fee to attend, because if I'm renting the theater for 3 hours, that's $300. And if 30 people showed up and paid $10 each, I'd be fine with it. As long as I'm not trying to profit from it. If I can turn a profit, great. But I don't want it to cost me money, because it's already costing me time. And it will cost me time to make exclusive content to be aired just there at the movie theater. In fact, what I'm thinking we would do is we'd rent the theater for 3 hours, and then say I rented it from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock. At 2:30, that would be the time that the exclusive content is going to show. So if you want to see it, be there by 2:30. Then the content will probably be 20, 30 minutes long, and then there'll be an hour to wrap things up, shake hands, and say goodbye. What do you guys think of that idea? How many people would be interested in going, let's call it $10 a head, to a meet and greet in Phoenix or the surrounding metropolitan Phoenix area? I have a feeling it'd only be like 6 people. That's why I haven't pulled the trigger on this idea yet. Rich says he would like it. Well, we got one, Rich. Just me and you. The entrance is $150 a person. That's not going to work. Yes, if the date was known in advance. Well, yeah, obviously it would be planned ahead, but I don't even know if it's worth planning if I don't have enough interest in people local that would want to go, because it's a worldwide audience. Great way to sell some merch. Oh, I have no intention of selling any merch while I'm there. No. No. It would just be a meet and greet with an exclusive video to be shown. That's all it would be, in a rented movie theater. Well, I'll tell you what, you can, you better have some awesome food. Yeah, movie theater, popcorn, and Skittles. No, Mitch would be there? Yeah, okay. So my concern is, honestly, that I think we'd have like 6 to 10 locals show up, and that's not enough. There'd have to be a minimum of 30, and ideally 60 or more would be worth doing it. So if you're interested, if that sounds like something you would be interested in attending, please let me know in the comments below, because I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the live feed now. And certainly a lot more people will watch the video later on. We've only got 485 people watching right now, so I don't know how many of those people watching currently are in Phoenix, probably a half dozen. So where I'm going to go with this is just kind of watch the comments to see and count how many people would be interested in sincerely going. And then that'll make up my mind as to whether or not this idea is premature. Just looking through the comments here. Yeah, a lot of people want me to come to them, but unfortunately you guys are all over the world. They're all over the globe. It's not like I have a big group of people in one little place. If there was one little place where there was a large group of people, it would probably be Great Britain. Somewhere in there. I think I have more viewers per capita in that amount of space than anywhere else in the world. So I think a meet and greet in Great Britain would probably go over much better than it would go here in the States, just because of the size and the distances involved. But, okay, well, that's my thoughts for the future. Well, thanks you guys for watching. I do appreciate it very much. Like I said, there'll be an upcoming sort of quick tip video over the title, right? The Sabrent versus Orico NVMe drive and my conclusion to that with all this other stuff cut out of it. So you can look forward to that. Thank you guys. I will see you all again hopefully tomorrow. And until then, bye for now.